I guess people know who you are because you've been on the podcast
Been here a couple times.
like 3-4 times, maybe. Something absurd.
There's a Transformer thing somewhere. Corey
That's
threw
right.
away,
Yeah.
but-
Did that ever go up?
Oh, Corey definitely just lost in
Oh,
their cycle
no.
bin for sure. For
But nobody knows who you are. So
I mean, people on my stream know who he is.
oh, really? Okay,
For
all right,
sure.
hell
I
yeah.
don't even know the people on his stream, and they just know me.
Well, no. Every time I reference you, I always like make a string of random accolades and then Blood Wolf at the end. I don't dox you.
I know,
luckily.
like now he's just using my gamer tag.
But I'll do like the South American World Championship Apex Legends number
Right,
3 in
You
the
gotta
US
put PS4
for,
on there. It's
Oh,
important.
true.
If you don't put PS4 on, people are gonna think he's better.
But
than
I'll hit you
with
with like number 3 in the world for light ammo pickups and
Yeah.
like 12th place Pathfinder emoting.
I have a clan member who calls me like the 10,000th ranked Pathfinder on Apex or something like that, or on Twitch, and I'm like, what? But I'm Mike Sanders.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Wait, are we recording already?
Yeah, we're.
Oh
Yeah.
shit!
Yeah, we're going. Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
This is part of the reason why I do that is so that it's not. I kind of feel bad because I feel like some people probably see it as like, he's trying to get me saying some shit that I don't want to say. It's more so that I don't like. I hate the like, what's up, YouTube? It's your boy. Like, I hate that shit.
Damn, just
so
go
like,
full,
it's just like
Keemstar though.
Fuck, game start.
Keemstar?
Oh,
You
fuck
already
that,
got
dude.
No,
Let's get
figured he was
wrong.
going-
Hey everybody, it's Joe here with.
I got the Pro Winston out of him doing it.
Oh fuck yeah, I
I
forgot
do
about
like
that.
Pro
Yeah.
Winston. Yeah.
Oh,
He
my-
disappeared. He was like one of the biggest YouTubers, and he just
Yeah.
disappeared.
Rest in peace.
I think he ended up like finishing law school or something.
Who knows?
Hey, probably better than making YouTube
Who knows
videos
what he
about
did?
Yu-Gi-Oh. Probably a better.
I bet no one will find out what happened to him.
All right, that sounds ominous.
We'll never know.
What if you know? I feel like you know now.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm just here. I didn't even know we were rolling. How would I know?
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, that's why I do it. It's not because of not trying to get people. I don't think I hit record on that. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. This is our backup, so it's not like the end of the world if it's not recorded. But I've got plenty of hard drive space, and this thing should be fine. But in any case, so I haven't thought at all about how I want to introduce this whole topic at all. So this is probably going to be really, really messy. But
It's best to just improv these kind of things.
I guess
Maybe.
that's kind of been like the running thing for this podcast is like how much can I improv? So a man has died, in a pretty bad way, and
Just a jet.
just the helicopter. Now that they know that we're talking, they're like, we gotta fucking shut these guys up. But so for those people who, I guess, if you're living on a rock, or you're just totally in quarantine. Man by the name of George Floyd was killed by a ex-police officer now, which is, I guess, a good thing. But
4X.
that's true. They all lost. They all.
Yeah, they all
Yeah.
got fired.
Okay. Cool. All right. They all got fired. Only one of them got
Arrested.
Arrested,
So far,
okay.
somehow.
okay. And I think stuff like this happens pretty often, but this one in particular, probably because more people have access to this kind of like their screen because they're stuck at home and they literally can't do anything else. I think this is kind of like lit a much bigger fire than the stuff in the past. Like we had the whole riot over the Zimmerman thing in Sanford, right? Like when that happened.
Yeah.
But I think that this is different because it's like a nationwide thing. Like I think I've seen pictures and videos from stuff from like in Japan and China and stuff. So like it's not like it's like people are paying attention. And I was having a conversation with my brother not that long ago, and I was talking to him about like, well, whether or not necessarily the rioting is a good idea, or like one of the things that came up was like, I personally think that Black History Month and things of that nature are not great. Like I would like to either A, see them go away, or B, have them changed. And in that conversation, it expanded out into like, oh, well, maybe this is a good topic. Maybe this is something worth like digging into. And who else better to do that than you guys? So
Just me.
I guess to start things off, there's a gentleman who made a point to want to remain anonymous, but he sent me a very, very, very long thought out message. I'm not going to read all of it. I'm going to read the first part of it. I'm going to try to go through it pretty quickly because there's multiple paragraphs, and then we can kind of work our way from the top and kind of dig through it, if that makes sense. Is that cool with you guys? Okay, so this I more so wanted this to frame our conversation so we can have like points to dig into. All right. So a person says, "Hey, I saw your post about making a podcast discussing race with a panel of people. I am personally really interested in this. I am curious to see if anyone on your panel has a truly hot take. What does addressing race mean? Question mark. I'm not going to say question mark every time. How do we rationally approach these issues? What are the perceived problems, and what are the real problems? Where do we go from here? Truly, the death of George Floyd was a tragedy of police brutality. It highlights the increasing brutality of the police, the underlying racial tensions in this country, and a whole bunch of other things that result in a reaction of some sort. This reaction presses the issue of whether or not the rioting is justified. In my opinion, these riots are not a form of protest, but the predictable results of ongoing trends. We live from snapshot to snapshot. For me to continue, I'm going to say that while I wish to appear and speak on your show, I really cannot afford to. I truly feel that if it is exposed that I've wrote this message, that my social life would be shot and I could be doxxed, etc. I implore you, though, please don't use my name. That being said, this piece is projected from the mind of a white man. What does addressing race mean? Americans seem to be constantly reminded that this country is a supremacist. I was like, that's not a word. Intrinsical racist, bias, and rigged system. This itself has given everyone a particular bias all on its own. People like to feel good, so they are naive to what they consume. Where we are now is a place where everyone has a similar opinion. The idea that the system is indeed corrupt and rigged is common. I believe the system is indeed corrupt, but personally, I think it is apparent that the system is not a pro-white monolith. If you hold a belief like mine, you are again reminded of all of your inherent evils and are forevermore branded as a personification of these decreed social ailments. I'll do 2 more paragraphs here. It's almost scripted how we view our societal issues. Black killed white is front and center on our screens and in our collective consciousness. It has been for a long time. The issue I see as the most prolific regarding black community is that black people do commit a large proportion of crime. American black people specifically, but generally, already have an animus against the system. They were enslaved. There used to be laws specifically opposed to black people, and at one point, white people ostracized them. So they riot, and the general public is torn. I'll stop there for now. If we go back, there's a lot. There's a lot. Okay, so I guess
so much to unpack.
Yeah. So I guess.
God.
Oh, did it fall? It's fine. You just want to. There you go. As long as it's it's good. Good. We good. Okay. So let's start with his first question, and that really is, what does addressing race mean? Like, what does that mean to you guys?
Who want to go first? You want to go first? Okay, I'll go first.
Yeah,
Okay.
go first. You go
So, I think something that comes up a lot, these kinds of conversations,
Mm-hmm.
you have a group of people who are pretty vocally advocating for equality amongst races. And some criticism that's flung their way a lot is, well, how do you want equality, but you always want to talk about how black people have it bad, or you always want to talk about how Hispanics have it bad. Like, it's not equal if we're always focusing on these people, right? For me, addressing race issues or racial issues are addressing what kind of benefits certain groups have, what kind of problems other groups have, and working towards at least a sliver closer to like an egalitarian system or society, which I don't think is necessarily the one we have right now. I think it's okay to say we want to live in a world where black people and white people and Hispanics and Asians and all of us have equal opportunities and are looked at equally under the law and are looked at equally under the justice system and law enforcement. And you can do that and still say there are other groups we need to focus on because they have problems that are very unique and definitely sort of exacerbated in the current system. So for me, it's an acknowledgement because there are people who deny. My family, a lot of friends I have, deny that this kind of distinction even exists. Yeah. For me, it's at least an acknowledgement that there is some kind of divide there.
I agree with how there's a large portion of people that deny that there's any form of like separation. The fact that
I feel like that's a hard stance to take. Like like there's no form of separation is wild to me. But
yeah, sorry, I mean there are people who say like, well, you know, we're legal under the law. There's no more segregation. There's no Jim Crow laws.
Sure, but that's
how are we not equal? And it's like, well, it's not so much about what the legislation or what's on the books. It's what's in practice, right?
It definitely has to do with like people who watch like the news channels are blinded by what that side is telling them, and so they just believe that to be true and ignore the other side, and they just don't even like have any real world experience possibly with it or see raw footage. Like, there was the first autopsy came out. Did you see the first autopsy report?
No.
So the first autopsy report said he didn't die from asphyxiation. Said it had to do with his health problems in the past, drug related, and I think there was one other thing, but nothing basically accusing the cop at all. And so people can then hear that and they're like, oh, see, the cop's not in the wrong at all. And
I just realized your microphone's turned the wrong way. You can keep talking. I'm just going to adjust this.
But now, today, they had hired two separate coroners to do the autopsy. I don't know if you saw that. And it came back immediate that it was obvious asphyxiation. So, but then it's like, are those people that saw the first one, are they even going to change their mind, like, whatsoever? There's those type of people, I feel like, that they won't.
I get when stuff like that happens, when there's, like, differing information, on one hand, it's I think it's very easy to go, okay, well, these people obviously had an agenda, and then they decided to, like, not tell exactly the truth for a reason, and people can insert what they think that reason is. I get that, and sometimes I think that, but I feel like it's also very important to be like, okay, well, is it possible for them to have come up with the conclusion that they did without them being bad actors? Essentially, is like I'm genuinely asking that question. Is like, do you think that is possible?
I guess it would depend on what you consider a bad actor. If it's someone that's acting under the belief that they're telling the truth, but their truth is skewed by some kind of implicit bias, then that's probably an issue. There are people who know what they should be doing or know what the more likely truth is, and then they go out of their way to change that or alter that or obfuscate that. That's probably worse, you know? And I mean, you could argue which is worse between them if they both have bad outcomes. I guess it doesn't necessarily matter, but there are probably people who are pretty deep-seated in their beliefs that, you know, hey, like, maybe there was something wrong with this guy, and it's just a coincidence that something happened, you know?
Well, I remember hearing reports that he did have, like, previous medical issues, but I don't know what those were or anything like that. So.
You know, I don't want to like jump back and forth too much because I know we kind of want to keep to the framing of
sure
this passage, but you know, you opened up by mentioning like that this one is kind of a big deal.
Yeah,
this situation is a big deal, and I mean, I first of all, I 100% agree with that. I think there's no doubt that access to, you know, cell phones and any kind of video recording, monitoring, all that kind of stuff helps people see these kinds of things in action. But for me, the reason, at least personally, that this one stands out so much is because we've seen so many countless instances of, you know, police brutality or different kind of attacks by police officers against civilians over the past 10 years now,
Sure.
basically, right? I mean, since like you were saying, Trayvon Martin was like one of the big ones that kind of landed on the radar first. But then George Zimmerman, people were like, oh well, he wasn't even really a cop, right?
Yeah.
And you have people like Philando Castile is one that is like big in my mind, who a cop approached his car and he was like, by the way, I want to tell you I have a gun and I'm gonna reach for my wallet, but I do have a gun, I have a permit, okay? And he's like, don't reach for your gun, and then he gets shot in his car with his like wife and child in the car.
Yeah.
Right? And each one of these instances, year after year after year, where these things happen, there's some kind of plausible deniability. Maybe the cop felt like he was in danger. How do you know? It's stressful on the job. Maybe he saw something that wasn't there. The guy had a knife. Oh, it was a cell phone. The guy was running to him. Oh, he was running a different way. But it's hard to tell in the dark, right?
Mm.
We have right now footage of a man on the floor begging for his life with a person kneeling on his neck for 10 minutes in broad daylight with 3 people watching him and doing nothing. At this point, it's like there is no plausible deniability. What happened is just wrong.
We also had that in 2014 with the Eric Garner thing in New York. Like, exact same scenario, just it's a chokehold instead of a guy putting his knee down on his neck. But those cops got off free. They were acquitted, which makes like no sense to me. They're both the exact same thing.
Well, I think that the climate and timing is probably the reason why. Back then, like, I don't think that there was as big of a divide's a bad word, but people weren't as sensitive to this kind of stuff back then. They were, but not to the degree that they are now.
I don't
It's
remember,
reaching a boiling point.
Yeah.
For sure.
I don't remember if what was the little kid's name? Tamir Rice, was that his name? He had like a BB gun in a park. And
I remember. Yeah.
I don't remember if that happened before or after the Eric Garner thing, but it was like a good string of like 3 or 4 big cases, like within a year or 2 of each other, and they all caused good like size riots. This is definitely obviously the biggest, and it's definitely the tipping point for sure. But I mean, you go all the way back to '91 with the LA riots off of what's his name?
OJ?
No, not
Or Rodney King?
Rodney
Rodney
King.
King,
Yeah, the Rodney
yeah.
King beatings. That's like obviously like the most historic one.
Yeah. I mean, this is also like this is coming off of the Ahmaud Arbery thing.
I'm not familiar with that.
I mean,
It was a dude in Georgia?
yeah,
I think it was Georgia
or Alabama. What's one of?
Yeah,
it's somewhere
a
between that
southern
area.
state.
One of the
and I guess
southern
to give
above Florida,
to give the most sort of abridged version of what happened, there's basically a dude that was jogging. 2 guys called the police and said that they thought that he stole something like a gun out of their car. They chased him down. They got out of their car. They had a shotgun pointed at him. He tried to fight them because you're jogging and 2 people run up on you with a shotgun, and then one dude just killed him. Yeah. And then they were like, "We were acting in self-defense," and it was a civilian arrest, so it was okay.
Right? Yeah.
Now this was filmed.
Yeah. They had a third friend drive behind their truck and film it. Well, I don't know if they told him to film it, but I think he was filming it for his friend's safety. And then he is the one who released the video, thinking that his friends would be fined.
Yeah.
And now he's even been arrested.
The big thing about that I think sticks in a lot of people's minds, other than the fact that it's like just, I mean, a horrific act as is that the videos were being released like months after it happened.
Yeah.
And only then was action being taken. Right? I think that's when people were on social media and talking about how like this was a lynching. Because and obviously it's hyperbolic language.
Yeah.
But it's to make the point that's like if we didn't see this, it would have just happened. And nobody would have known.
And who knows how many times that has already happened.
Right. So when I hear stuff like that, I don't that kind of stuff doesn't like make me upset or really invoke like a negative emotion. It's more because when I hear that, I go, okay, well, boy, this is bad. But I'm gonna compare these 2 things. But like when you have any, I guess I won't need to because I can just say this. Anytime you have an interaction between whether it's one person and another person, and one of the people either dies or is hurt, and the only 2 what's the word I'm looking for? Recollection. The only two testimonies I guess you have are from both of those two people or two parties. It is really hard to figure out what the truth is in those matters. Now, the good thing is, in that case, it was filmed. Regardless of whether or not they thought it would be beneficial for themselves, it was filmed. And so it's very easy then to say, okay, well, clearly this is what happened, and now this is bad. And now it's easy to dish out judgment. But when you don't have those things, that's where things get gray. Because I'm one for like, yeah, this smells, this looks, everything about this looks like a bad like hate crime thing, but I don't know. Right. Like at the end of the day, I have no idea. Like it sucks. It really sucks because it's even when like everyone unanimously can look at the same situation and go, "Yep, that was like we kind of know what happened there," but without any proof, it's kind of
the Casey Anthony.
Yeah. It's just like
right. I mean, nobody wants the due process kind of interrupted for just whatever seems like the most likely or seems like what benefits a story the best, right? Like you're saying the Casey Anthony thing and like OJ also are like pretty big examples of like, well, if we really can't prove it for sure, then I guess technically it just is what it is. And that's the way things are. But it's a scary sort of precedent to set. To be like two people can drive up to another person, kill them, and then if they're not there to tell the story, then it was self-defense, and nothing will happen for basically ever. It just so happens someone was watching. But it kind of sparks the question. It's like, well, how often does this happen? How many people get away with some kind of crime or some kind of act like this, and with no evidence, just no one finds out?
Well, I would want to know a statistic on if it, like, obviously it would probably get reported in some sense, like, oh, these white guys shot a black guy, and the white guys don't end up being in trouble because there's no proof. How many times is it the other way around, but the black guy ends up getting in trouble?
Yeah,
even with no proof.
That's true.
Sure. I mean, that's definitely a point to be made. Is these two guys came up, aimed a gun at this dude, and he tried to defend himself. I mean, it would make sense. You either run away and probably get shot in the back, or you try to take the gun from them and defend yourself, right? I mean, that's what everyone loves, the stand your ground and defend you, So, I mean,
old Florida.
What are we to say, right? If that dude, if Ahmaud Arbery was able to get that gun from their hands and did shoot them back, I mean, would he walk away? For defending himself? Like, I mean, it's a tough question, but I don't know if you want to get back to the...
We can't because that's kind of like the next question is like, how do we approach these kind of conversations? It's or my angle that I took was, how do you fix this? Like what is a next step in terms of fixing it? Like, obviously it's not something that can be healed overnight, like, but so I'll give you my
I already know
my opinion is, when it comes to like black people, I guess I should preface this where I grew up in South Carolina, pretty racist state to be in, and I grew up in a very like Southern-esque like city. It's called Bishopville, South Carolina. There was a town literally called Lynchburg. We had two different high schools. One was called Robert E. Lee Academy. Like, it's an interesting place to grow up. That being said, I never grew up with the mindset of like us versus them. My parents did. Like my parents, even them coming from like the islands and whatnot, and not really growing up like in the states, they still had like a mindset of like, yeah, these people are nice, but also there's this thing that happened that's really bad. And I think that comes with the time that they grew up in and whatnot. But even in all of that, like because I had white friends, I had black friends, I had friends of all kinds of different races, and I think that probably shaped how I looked at race as a thing. But I say all that to say, like, slavery and all of that, the bad stuff that goes along with it, that shit happened. you can't necessarily delete it from history, but I think that the constant reminder of it is an overall negative gain. And a lot of people disagree with me, and that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that I talked about at the beginning of this. I don't know if we recorded that, but about Black History Month. Yeah, so like the way that it's set up now, it's like every year, everyone is reminded, hey, some people that didn't look like you did some really bad stuff, and that seems to be the frame of it. And every now and then it gets thrown in like, hey, this guy invented some shit. And he like, hey, this dude smashed some peanuts together, made some peanut butter. Like, life's good. Like, hey, you did all this good. Hey, Martin Luther King. Like, but to me, like, I see it as like, it's this constant reminder. And with that reminder, you kind of, every year you keep that kind of hate going.
It's almost like a giant setback.
Right. And I understand the argument of, well, if you get rid of stuff like that, history can repeat itself because you're not keeping the lesson alive. But I don't think that is a lesson that will be forgotten. Like, I think it boils down to like human decency as a thing, and I don't think I don't think you need Black History Month to teach people how to be decent to other humans. Yeah. So I think stuff like that is an overall gain. The thing that sucks too, and I guess it goes on to I think in order for us to kind of work better together, and not just black and white, but all races, there's a part of not necessarily culture, but like the way that you work together. America is made up of all these, like this whole melting pot theory, right? Mm-hmm. Like everybody comes from different cultures, and they come here, and life's good. But what ends up happening is people bring things from other cultures that don't mesh well with the others, and then you have this situation where like things clash. I think it would be wise or behoove us to say, okay, we want to make this thing work. There has to be some concession. There, like, you can, where you draw that line, I don't know. But like, to sit here and say that you can bring everything over from your culture here and be fine, that's not going to work. And it's a little bit weird with like African American people, because it's like, well, you didn't try to come over here. Like, you kind of were brought over here, and I get that too. But that's just kind of where my mind goes when I think about that. Is like there might have to be some concession in order for everyone to get along. Like, I don't know if I'm explaining that well enough, or if that makes a lot of sense. I'm sure there's a lot of questions that you guys have now. It's
really,
but
each point so far has just been a lot.
It's
a lot to,
Like, I guess, okay, so let's start back with Black History Month. Like,
okay.
How do you guys, do you see that as a net positive or a net negative?
Okay, so sorry, Michael, do you want to go first?
You're fine.
Okay, so for me, if we're talking about Black History Month in terms of like celebrating accomplishments of black people throughout history, I mean, first of all, I don't, this is a video podcast.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
So obviously, I have my perspective, and that's all I can grant, right?
But I think the thing that is very important, I'm glad you brought that up, is your perspective is important. Like, it's
the majority.
Yeah, I think.
Well, okay.
I'm
Hispanic.
Okay, sorry, but sure. But okay. But it's a large number that whatever you're about to say.
Yeah. It's probably a lot of people who agree with. Yeah. Continue. I think so. For me, when I think about these things, it's kind of like the immediate parallel that comes to my mind is like celebrating like gay people throughout history, because there were a lot of people who were gay who were just denied sort of their achievements because of who they were. Like history, and especially history in specific places, and what kind of stories we want to tell, and what kind of accomplishments we want to pass down. that's like very much affected by like what kind of stuff we want to share,
Sure.
but also what kind of opportunities those people have. So like if black people are denied from the conception of America the ability to be granted their accomplishments and what they've achieved, and they're denied being put in textbooks for X amount of years, and they're denied being put on stages for X amount of years. I think this is kind of, you know, I don't want to say the word.
No,
but
no,
this is to, you know, we're paying them back a little bit,
Sure.
and it's to be like there are a lot of things that we owe to these people who are denied the ability to be respected for what they've done throughout history. And it's important to recognize that, because if all of our history books are about all the things that all the white settlers did and the founders and all
Sure.
that stuff, then it feels like, well, black people were here from the start too. And like you were talking about culture, the history of black people in America, their culture is American culture.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, we talk about like the biggest things in the U.S. and you know what is U.S. culture, and popular foods and music and all sorts of stuff come from black people throughout history. And so for me, I think it's important to make sure that that's kind of on the forefront, because they were denied that for so long. Now, I kind of see your point. Like, going forward, do we have to make it so overt? Like, can't we just integrate it into
Integrate
normal
it.
I was gonna
history?
say, yeah, that's like,
That's
it's like
probably a
Just one
conversation-
specific month. I was going to say you should
I
integrate.
Probably a conversation worth having.
I'd like to see there be I don't know how you would do this, but like a more integrated, if you want a month of like just historical things that were important. And included in that would be white people's accomplishments, black people's
Right.
accomplishments, Hispanic people's, Asian people. Like it but the race of the person shouldn't be such a forefront thing. It I think if the goal is for everybody to be like one, then making all of these different groups and divisions, that seems exactly opposite of the main
Right.
goal.
I mean, I don't necessarily even disagree with that, but it's difficult to have a group of people who are like basically denied being treated like humans for
also,
3/4 of U.S. history, and then when we decide that it's finally okay, it's like, well, by the way, all of the accomplishments and all the stuff we talk about and all of our big monuments, those are all going to be like white people things. You can go on from here, and you can have whatever. You can have, you know, Kendrick Lamar's new album, and it's like, you know, like, what the fuck? Like, there are people who are responsible for all sorts of things, and that's even before going back to when they just weren't even allowed to do anything, because
I
they
guess
were literally enslaved.
my
Like,
question then would become, and this is something that I think extends to a lot of different not government incentives, but like things of that nature. Like, until when? And I think that question is the reason why some people get upset. It's the reason why like people talk about like what was it when Asian people have to have different scores to get in college and all that kind of stuff.
sure.
Because the question becomes, how long do you have something like that until things are even? And because no one ever makes an end goal, they just say, okay, we've inconvenienced, or inconvenience is way too light of a word. Like, we fucked over this race for years. So because we've done that, we will make a special month for this race to kind of level things out. Until when? Because right now, I'm willing to bet that most people have no idea when White History Month is. They have no clue. None whatsoever. Everyone knows when Black History Month is. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, so like the question becomes like, because I like to think of like how does a white person feel in the month of February? Like what is that? I imagine it's not a great feeling. Like,
I mean, I don't know.
you see what I'm saying?
I mean, they got 11
To be
months.
honest,
Sure.
February is White History Month. I didn't know.
No. I'm saying
Black History Month.
yeah, February is Black
Oh,
History Month.
sorry.
But what I'm getting at is I'm curious as to if a, I guess you kind of said like your argument there, like the other 11 months.
That wasn't a real argument.
I know, but
in case I gotta walk that back.
Yeah, no, you're fine. It's just I guess it's just like imagine. I just imagine myself in that person's shoes, where it's like I'm not doing anything. I've never done anything like negative towards a race. I'm not a racist person. I all these things are good. That's cool that it's good that like people are celebrating their own accomplishments. But why am I being demonized here? It's like why are people constantly being reminded to be like, hey, you're bad. And I can, if I were to put myself in their shoes, that sounds terrible. Like that sounds fucking annoying. I mean, at least like
I couldn't speak from understanding on that, but my hope would be that Black History Month isn't ever used as a tool to make white people feel bad. I know, and there's like this big concept of like white guilt.
Yeah,
of reminding white people of what they've done wrong, of all the bad stuff they've done. And for me,
I don't want something
the reminders of like, hey, there were slaves in the U.S. There was segregation. There were Jim Crow laws. There was all sorts of stuff that we did. I mean, I say we.
But as a country, like yes,
we did.
Yeah.
That's not okay. And for me, I wouldn't want people to just feel bad about what happened. I would want people to want to make those things better. So like, kind of to your point of what you were saying before at the start of that same thing you were reading off, like, the constant reminder of slavery. It's like, I don't think people need to be reminded about slavery all the time. But I don't think it should go away until we acknowledge it and do something about what's wrong. I mean, we've kind of talked about the subject on and off on different podcasts and different shows.
Yeah.
So you probably kind of understand my point a little bit already. But like, we weren't just seeing a situation where it's inequality for 75% of history and then equality for the last 25%. Everything that happened before is a ripple effect for everything that's going to keep happening. So Black people don't own land. Once they're finally free, they don't have land to pass on to the people that the families they raise. So now they grow up poorer. If they grow up poorer, they probably go to worse schools. They have worse schools. They have lower education. They get worse jobs. They make less money. People that make less money commit more crime. Then you keep moving that forward. We had segregation and we had all that stuff. That stuff goes away, but we also have the war on drugs. Who does the most drugs?
Yeah, like,
who commits the most crime, and we keep doing that, and all of a sudden, okay, well now Black people are being, put in jail for doing drugs, and that means that they're growing up without, a 2-parent household, which means they're more likely to commit crime, which means they're more likely to go to jail, which means they're less likely to make money, and it just keeps on going that way.
I guess this is not a end all solution, but like my thing to that is yes. I sound like Michael now. Holy shit. Fuck. But like yes, like those things happen, but you can't go back in time and fix that. What you can do is so like if I wasn't socially aware as a kid to be like, oh, okay, well I'm growing up in a household that's like less or not as well off as others. Like as I got older, I kind of realized, oh, okay, this is just kind of how things were, like mid-tier, lower middle class, I guess. Like when I was growing up, but you can't go back and say, okay, well, some bad shit happened that has set you pretty far back. But here's the thing. Here's the game. The game is you got 4-3 unsuited. Well, that's actually not terrible. You got like a 4-9 unsuited, like slightly, but no,
it's worse.
Yeah, that's way worse. But so like that's the hand you got dealt. You can't go to the dealer and say, hey, look, this is trash, man. Can I swap this shit? Like, no one's gonna allow you to do that. What you can do is make decisions that set you better up. Like, it sets you up better. And I don't think that lesson is being taught to communities that need it. I think that's the bigger thing. It's like, okay, yes, slavery happened and you've been set pretty far back. That sucks. If you continue doing stupid shit, you will keep being set further and further back. However, if because your hand that you dealt was so shit, it is imperative that you make really good decisions. If you don't make those good decisions, it's gonna suck worse for you than other people.
Like you're not wrong.
Yeah,
you're definitely not wrong. But I guess like for me, I mean maybe this is a problem with me, but I very much think that people are a product of their environment. You know, like it's easy to tell people. And I'm not saying it to discredit you, but there is something to be said about telling people like you need to do better, you need to make good decisions. But if the system they live in, the household they grow up in, the schools they go to, the justice system that's inherently stacked against them, employment that's inherently stacked against them, if all these systems continue to exist at some level, like it becomes difficult to just sort of sheer will their way through these things. I think there's something to be said about like we should be doing that. But it's not a one solution kind of thing.
My thought process on that though is like how do those things get better? Like how do you make those schools better? How do you make your families better? How do you do those things?
End the war on drugs.
Yeah.
We do affirmative action. I know that's like a big contentious
I don't know if you
thing.
There's a lot that you'd have to do.
I mean, you have to go point by point. Like schools are usually funded by like property taxes. And that means that areas that have houses that are worth less are going to have schools that have less money. So what does that mean? Poorer communities have worse schools. And that just creates an endless cycle, right? So that's a problem right there, because if black people on average tend to make less money than white people, that means that their schools are on average going to be way worse, and they're going to have a worse education. That's a problem. Like we talk about affirmative action, right? There's like this huge case study that's been held for years and years and years now about how people with black sounding names on applications are less likely to be employed, even if they have an identical resume to someone with a white-sounding name. Obviously, they use stereotypes, but that's part of proving the point, is that a name with, or an application with Jamal will be X% less likely to get a job than someone named like Jimmy, or something like that, which obviously it's, the names are purposely inflated, but it's to prove a point. And this is like a super well documented, like cross-analyzed study that seems to bear out pretty well. And then again, like the war on drugs is a huge issue. Like how many people, especially black people, are in jail for non-violent crimes related to drugs. And now it's even more comical because we're getting into a situation where we have tons and tons and tons of people in prison for non-violent drug offenses, while we're also going back and saying, actually, marijuana's not bad.
It's good. Yeah.
And it's actually really cool. And BuzzFeed can do an article about fucking weed Panera at the corner of, like, Los Angeles, where, like, the fucking gentrified, like, 50-year-old white ladies, like, fucking smoke a doobie and then sell you, like, a chocolate croissant or whatever. And it's like, isn't like 80% of the people in fucking jail for this shit? And they're like, no, it's cool now. And you're like, well, that's weird, because we held up this, like, it turns out weed was not a moral crime. It was just a legal crime. Yeah. But now it's cool. And then it's like, so what do we do about all those people that didn't actually do, I mean, they broke the law, but they didn't kill people. They didn't steal. They were just selling fucking weed. And now weed is cool. And those people aren't in their homes, which means their kids are gonna probably make less money, which means, and it's this whole fucking cycle.
Do you know how this is a genuine question? Do you know how those situations end up? Like, so say for instance somebody gets popped for some weed charge, or some marijuana charge, or whatever. They go to jail or they go to prison or whatever the fuck. Then later during their sentence, the crime that they committed becomes legal. It is no longer illegal. What happens?
I believe in Denver when it first happened, they got released.
It is super complicated. Yeah, it's like state by state. Like we have like already the issue with marijuana in the U.S. where it's like federally illegal, but then legal in some states. Yeah, and it's like, oh well, how much did you have? Were you selling it or using it? Were you already arrested? Were you just like convicted for it, or were you being sentenced? Were you in jail for 5 years and you have 5 more years to serve for whatever the fuck you're doing? Like it's very complicated. Okay. I wish I had more information.
I'm pretty sure I remember reading though when Denver first made it legal that they were almost all, at least for first-time offenders and stuff, were released.
Right.
Okay. I was just genuinely curious about that. I want to double back to the riots, but before we get to the riots, I kind of want to get your guys' opinion on this, because this is something I don't really get to relate to, because usually when these topics come up, because of the color of my skin, people are more inclined to listen to what I have to say. I read it before, but I'm going to kind of go back over it. It was a line where he says, "For me to continue, I'm going to say that while I wish to appear and speak on your show, I really cannot afford to. I truly feel that if it is exposed that I wrote this message, that my social life would be shot, I could be doxxed, etc." And then he goes on and he's like, "I implore you to read this aloud." Do you get that feeling of like, I can't talk about this, like, or I shouldn't talk about this, like when stuff like this happens?
I know there's people out there that do, for sure, but
Okay, here's my fucking hot take, okay? The only people that I want to have a social stigma for the things they say are fucking like racists, homophobes, and fucking transphobes and Nazis, and that's it. Anything else, I don't care if you're a white person talking about black issues, or a cis person talking about trans issues, or a straight person talking about gay issues. There are people who, obviously, like, that being said, you should, like, probably, give credit to a person's accounts of what they've lived through. If it is a gay person being like, this is what it was like living as a gay person, that's probably pretty valuable. Now, if they have like a shit take about like how we should, set up society or whatever, that doesn't make it any better. Right? In the same way, I think the substance is in the arguments and the points you're making. And obviously, you should lend credence to a person if they have a personal experience, but that doesn't give them full suite to just be like, that means I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's not always
not necessarily.
Sorry to interrupt you, Michael.
You're fine. So I brought this up on my. I've been like, I post lots of things on my Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, everyone knows that like my Facebook's pretty active.
Yeah.
I started posting like cop videos and stuff back in 2012 when I first stumbled upon them. Now, it wasn't always just something race related. It was more so focused around cops not either knowing the constitutional rights that we have or something. But it was tons of videos. I just kept coming across them that people just like seem to not know about. I don't know why people haven't then stumbled upon them yet, but I figured, all right, let's share it. See,
they're not looking for it. Yeah.
Well, sure. So I decided, let's see what my friends and family and everyone on my Facebook have to say about this. I mean, I wasn't asking them, but they would see it and maybe they would click on it.
Remember the Animaniacs?
Yeah.
Remember the good idea, bad idea?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I literally, probably for a solid year, there was a good while where I was posting a video a day, like if not multiple in a day, of just cops doing something bad. Like I said, if it's race or constitutional or something, and it got me to dive more into learning about certain constitutional rights and all that. And I remember one day, one of my cousins messaged me, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, I think you should probably stop posting cop videos and maybe delete the ones that you have just for like future job opportunities and stuff like that." And and I replied with, "Yeah, you're probably right." And then I deleted him off my Facebook, along with pretty much all my other family members. Now I've added him back since, but I have him like post blocked.
Yeah.
And the fact that there was no way I was gonna be censored because of my future job opportunities. I thought this was a way bigger like situation that was happening with police abusing their authority that they had. And I wanted people to like know about it. I had multiple friends would tell me, "Oh, you need to stop doing this," and I've definitely had multiple high school friends delete me from Facebook or at least mute me or something. And now we're at 2020, 8 years later, people are finally like on board with this. Like, and I'm like, yeah, I tried to let people know early, but it's been happening. So I don't ever feel like I'm like wanting to be like silenced in any way, or I don't feel bad about speaking my mind on the topics because I'm not racist or anything. I got a call to press yesterday on I was an oppressor.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
strong.
By some black man. I didn't know the person. It was on a Facebook post that a friend had shared, And it
I
is.
saw the post.
You saw it? Okay,
okay.
it was.
Mike was asking for it.
I'm
kidding. I'm kidding.
I didn't have to comment on it, but it was a post where it was saying, "Oh, we're going to do a riot here, and a protest / riot, looting, whatever." And it had the word "crackers" in it, Krakas. I was like, I haven't seen anyone spell it that way. Let me make sure it's still the same meaning.
He's like,
and it was the same meaning. He just spelled anything that had the cuss sound. He used the K instead because I saw it in his post as well. So I went and said, because he wanted like everybody, but then he used that with another sentence saying, we got to show these crackers, whatever. I'm like, so you don't want white people that are on your side to come? And then he starts going like, well, are you an oppressor and all this stuff? And I'm like, just ask this. And he goes on his whole thing. I'm like, just what I told you about my videos I've been posting. I'm like, I'm on your side 100%, all this stuff. And at the end, he ruled that I'm an oppressor.
Nice.
Okay. Like, okay.
Yeah, I worry about people who they get stuck in that like us versus them kind of thing, and no matter what actions, any proof, evidence, whatever you can show them, it's like, nope, you look like that person that did something bad to me, and thus you are a bad person. And that is the definition of racism. There was a video I watched that was like, oh, can black people be racist? I'm like, yes, I can actually answer that for you before you watch the video. It's yes.
Yeah, there's
everyone
like this,
can. Like,
fuck, because I'm in like the SJW circles. There's like this like weird argument that's like technically only white people can be racist because racism technically is like privilege plus power, and so since minorities don't hold power in the US, like even if they have like a belief that if they don't have the political power to enact it, then they can't be racist. I don't agree with this, by the way, but this is like a definition some people use, and it's like super fucking niche, and like nobody would ever agree with this in their entire fucking life. I don't know why people say this shit. It's so fucking wild.
Would you call yourself an SJW?
Yes, obviously, yes.
Like,
okay, so are there different...
So, do you want to see my fucking card? Like,
oh no,
of course.
Would you say there's different degrees then to an SJW?
What the fuck do you want? Like basic and then like evolves at level 16? What do you?
Because obviously you're smart and you're sensible, but there's also there's SJWs that are way more extreme than you.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Well, so would you then say you agree with some of the extreme things that they've been doing?
No, I don't really.
That's what I mean by
I don't really subscribe to like the, I agree 100% with what these people do or 100% what these people do. Like, there's some kind of argument to be had where you're talking about like a political figure, and if you support them, then you're like, implicitly supporting their ideas, and you can get into like the nuance of like, do you support everything or just some stuff? But if you support them at all, does that mean that you're just giving them free reign to do whatever they want or whatever? That's like its whole thing. But like for me, like, yes, what people would generally consider like social justice-y fucking things, like free healthcare and free education and gay rights and trans rights and fucking intersectional feminism and all that shit. I say shit obviously lovingly because like, card carrying.
It's weird because when I hear stuff like that, and this is the reason why I don't like those titles, because you call yourself an SJW, but what SJW means to everyone is different. And so like that's the reason why. And a lot of those things you just said, I also agree with.
Like, to be
but
fair,
I would never call myself an SJW because
I say it like ironically.
Yeah,
kind of. And now it's become non-ironic because of the way it's like used. But it's like I took the slur
like a
back.
lot of people think of an SJW. That meme with like the girl who's like her mouth is wide open, shouting and everything. And like, a lot of people just like, oh, that's the type of person SJW.
I mean, are you familiar with the phrase reactionary?
Sure. Yeah.
It's like counter SJW, like people who hate feminism and hate the gay agenda. I don't know what the fuck the gay agenda is. Like you open the notebook and it's like, I have fucking a mimosa at 12. I don't know what the gay agenda is. But like those kind of people, I don't know, like they're the ones that will look at someone who's like, I just think gay people should be able to get married. And they're like, you fucking SJW, all purple dyed hair, trigger, no. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that's like the caricature of like the SJWs, like, fucking, I think they literally call her like Triggered Red or something. It's like the lady with red hair that's like screaming, and he's like, that's just what SJWs look like, and I'm just like,
it's a funny video. I'm not
you know,
gonna lie.
like I call myself an SJW because I think it pretty quickly
Shows what side
enlightens
you're on.
people on what my beliefs are.
Sure.
Obviously, yes, people would be like, "Oh, studio, whatever." And this maybe this is like maybe this is like the most Papega thing I say today, but like generally, I don't even like disagree with what most like SJWs, if they, you know, whatever,
Yeah.
however you want to. I don't disagree with what they say. I just think a lot of them are just like really uneducated, so they don't actually know how to explain what they're talking about. So like, I mean, we've talked about this,
Yeah.
and like we had a conversation where I like non-ironically said patriarchy,
Yeah.
but like I can like explain what I mean by that and not just be like men. Like, men what? And it's like, yeah, all the men. Like that doesn't mean anything.
So
you know?
that's the thing that anytime somebody puts the word "all" in stuff, I think that might be my trigger. Like if I've got one, that's the one, because it came up with the whole. There's a lot of my friends on like Instagram and like Facebook now, which I've heavily thought about just walking out of Facebook. Really, really thinking about it now.
I've been there too, but I post my Twitch links there.
Yeah, that's the only reason. Yeah, like that's why I'm still there.
Yeah.
But people that are like all cops, like all men, like all women, like it's just like it makes me so angry because of how like I'm gonna steal this from you, Steven. How like smooth brain, like there's no like further thought that goes in. It's just like something bad happened to me, and so every person that is in that category now like that happened. And I'm just like, it's so stupid. It's so like it's such a premature thought. And I've seen a lot of that. And what's really funny is there is a prominent deputy that I've had on the podcast before that is he's in all of these friend circles, and all of these people that are friends with him are still being like, fuck all cops.
Yeah.
They're all, I'm like, you just had a beer with him. Like, obviously not like it's
dude, okay,
and I get
it's
what
fucked.
if your intention is like
fucked.
if your intention is saying like the system is fucked, then say the system's fucked.
Yeah.
That saying all cops encompasses all cops. That's what that word "all" means. Like,
there's
drives me nuts.
Fuck. So I don't agree with the fucking all cops are bastard thing. The fucking ACAB. I'm sure that's one of the just the people post like ACAB all over Facebook. And like this is the I'm gonna plug into the fucking SJW matrix again. But this is not what I think. But there's people who are like, okay, not all cops are bad, but if there's bad cops and then there's cops that don't do anything, then they're complicit. But then also everyone that signs up to be a cop is also being part. And then if you want to go like communist with it too, then you do the thing where you're like, okay, all cops are actually people that sign up to be part of basically state force, and then that force is used to defend the rights of capitalists and people who own capital. So actually, like, all cops are just complicit in like furthering the needs and the wants of the capital owners, and because when the bourgeoisie actually owns and it's like, well, fuck. I mean, like,
I go as far as if one cop, good cop, sees the bad cop doing something and doesn't say anything, that good cop is also a bad cop because he's not going to report what he just saw as something possibly. So like these. Any cop that was standing around, say, the Eric Garner case, didn't do anything. Sure. Well, they're now a bad cop. They should have done something.
So,
that's my mindset.
There can be nuance there.
Yeah,
there is a worse cop. Yeah, in that situation.
There's a worse cop. And you can say that I wouldn't call that the people that the cops that don't do anything. I wouldn't necessarily call them bad cops. I think if they have a history of doing that, then yeah, it's kind of like, okay, well, what? But like if some officer's doing something bad and another officer sees it and doesn't do anything, is that bad? Yes. Does that make him a bad person? No. And the reason I say that is because you have no idea, and I have no idea, what happens if he does that. This guy could be taking care of his 3 kids and his family, and him reporting that means that all of them, like, he gets fired or he gets put on like some lower thing. Like there could be some absurd punishment that he knows that I don't. That if he does it, fucks over people that he cares about.
Oh, 100%.
And then there's the argument of like, well, now you're weighing them versus the person who's getting fucked over. And
what's really fucked
there-
there?
yeah.
It's the system is fucked there. That's what-
Sure, sure.
There was a video of a cop that stopped another cop from doing something. I can't remember exactly if it was an arrest or something, but then that cop who stopped him ended up getting fired not too long after.
And it sucks.
And a video just came out today of there was a girl on the ground just kneeling.
Mhm.
Obviously, like it was surrounded by cops and other protesters, but she was just there with her hands up. And a guy cop walks by, white, and just shoves her to the ground. And then I don't know what it was a black lady cop. I don't know what her position was. She seemed like she was more in charge, but she chased after that cop and started yelling and freaking out at him. So I'd be curious to see if anything comes of that within the next day or two.
It's interesting, and there's the whole like there's the brotherhood or whatever like of like police force, and I hear that being thrown around a lot. And I think for a job like that, that mindset is necessary because you're literally going out into like unknown every day, and so you do need to have this kind of like camaraderie of like take care of your fellow officer. I think that makes sense.
I mean, it definitely makes sense,
But-
but it's scary to develop this like us versus them mentality for people that you're supposed to be
right.
a part of.
Yeah.
You know, you're not a citizen.
Yeah, it's true.
Right.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. It's very true.
And I think that's one of the big concerns people have is this idea that like cops are this unit separate from the rest of the population, and they have to look after themselves and protect themselves, and they
If anything, they have it. I don't say worse, but like they have a. It's like they're taking care of themselves and you. Like that is ideally what they should
like
be doing.
I think and I don't know if we're like there yet talking about this thing, but I it's kind of shocking to me how rigid people want to be with how they talk about like police problems. Obviously, a majority of cops are good. The vast majority of cops do at least just do their job.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about, as Officer Samuel drove by and picked up little Susie, got her some fucking Jeremiah's Italian ice, you know, and it was the cookie butter and vanilla gelati, and that one's really good, and they don't always have it.
I went back on my timeline to see some of my older posts about police, and one that stood out that I had said was, or someone had commented, it was on the post, saying, why don't you post more good cop videos? I was like, well, that's their job to be good, so there aren't as many good cop videos because people expect that to happen. Did you guys see the video of the police chief?
Yes.
Basically walking with.
I saw that. Yeah,
that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think that's stuff like that's like it's nice. But I grew up. My mom worked in law enforcement for a long period of time. I'd say like maybe I say a long period of time. Now I'm older and maybe it's not that long, but maybe I think it was like 4 or 5 years. I think. And in that time, I heard and saw like bad officers, good officers. Like, so I literally had one of them teach me how to drive a stick shift. Like, it's like it is impossible for me to think in my head anything because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's comes to like men, women, like it's I just can't see the world that way, and it irks me when people
I
do.
Get, and this is like the closest they'll fucking have me concede, but I understand the point people want to make with like the ACAB thing. The problem is like when you do something like that, you put yourself in such a radical position that like a majority of people just will never agree with you. Yeah. The people who agree are you're gonna have to convince them because they already agree. What the fuck? Like, but you can never sensibly bring someone to that point. I think it's a mistake to focus on whether or not specific cops are good or bad. And I mean, I've probably shown this a little bit already, but like my interest is improving like the systems that run these things, right? Like if we think about all of like law enforcement as a whole, it's like a tree. Like people will sit there and pick out what leaves are good or bad, and not give a fuck about the branches, or the trunk, or the roots.
So
I
I
don't give
guess
a shit about that.
Let me ask you then, what and after we dig through this, we can get into like the riots and whatnot.
Sure.
What are some standout parts of the system that you think are bad and need to be fixed?
Okay, so I play video games on the internet,
Okay.
so it's really hard for me to just solve.
I mean, that question's also for everyone. It's not just for
No,
everyone.
yeah.
Like, this is the kind of stuff and the reason why I wanted to start streaming these, because then like we can get the chat involved and whatnot.
Yeah.
And like I don't know. I got to figure out a way to do that because I want to do it, but I also don't want to lose my Twitch account. So that's
You probably wouldn't lose your Twitch account unless you got Tim Gallon on here.
oh boy, it's gonna be interesting.
And yeah, just make sure you have your stream deck
Oh,
with the
yeah.
sensor
No
sound.
one knows what Twitch like bans anymore at this point. So-
Listen, okay, I'm full in Twitch. Do you want to answer the fucking question? Now, or what's going on?
Sorry.
I hate your water. I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you were just gonna.
I thought that was your water as well.
No, this is my water.
Okay.
Oh, just because I have my giant jug of water.
I have a water here.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm drinking this water.
All right, fine. I guess I'll try this one. All right. So what was the question?
I don't remember anymore.
What do you do to solve the
well,
problem from the bottom up
No,
or top down?
I think that
direction
I
you
was just
wanna go.
curious as to what parts of the system you recognize as like bad and need to be fixed.
Okay, I'm gonna rapid fire these without thinking. This is a bad idea. A lot of cops have an us versus them mentality. A lot of cops are way too overgeared. I guess if we want to like militarize, right? That's like a big point. It's people being like, people seem to have a lot of access to lethal weaponry for just mostly civilians and
They
maybe
definitely
sometimes
have
a
a power trip.
homeless dude with a gun.
100%.
Power trip is like a big thing. A bunch of fucking LARPers that literally grew up playing like Call of Duty, and the second they're allowed to hold a rifle, they're just like, holy fuck. And I think
I
like
made
these
it,
riots, if these riots are not a huge indicator of the fact that a lot of these people were just like bored as fuck giving like traffic tickets and like saving cats or whatever, and now they have like riot shields and like fucking tear gun and they're like, holy fuck, dude, like I grew up playing fucking PUBG, like holy shit. It's like I'm making a joke of it, but it's like but it's real. Like people like they feel like really fucking empowered to like be doing these things. I think that's like probably a problem. And I mean, that's on top of the fact that, like, in the US, we already, like, fetishize weapons and, like, violence, like, a lot. And I don't even mean just, like, Mortal Kombat should be banned. I mean, like, literally, like, you have, like, people who are, like, oh, dude, I got this fucking, my gun magazine has a 4 fucking page spread of an AK, and I just fucking, like, it's like, holy shit, dude. Like, why do people love fucking guns so much? Like, they'll look at a gun, they're like, this is so sexy, the metal's so sexy. What the fuck?
I've always questioned that, too. Like, I have multiple friends that'll post, like, pictures of guns and like, look how amazing this is. I'm like,
if you just like shooting, like that's fine,
yeah,
but
sure.
people get like
Go to a
weird
shooting
about
range
it,
and
dude,
everything,
and
but,
that's
Like
I
I've
don't know.
worked on editing range like advertisements, basically like shooting range advertisements and stuff like that, and like promo videos and whatnot. I get what you're saying, but the way, I guess this is me and the way I look at guns. I don't, and some of the people that are my friends, they are excited about this thing in the same way that I'm excited about a keyboard
I
or
would say like Magic cards or Yu-Gi-Oh.
I don't.
something,
Nope.
maybe.
Nope.
Well,
I
no,
mean,
some
I'm-
people
Oh,
have, like,
I
the
see what
same
you're saying.
design, like,
I thought
there's
you were
a
talking
light-
about me. I was
No,
like,
no,
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 dude,
no.
I ain't fucking.
Look, no, but there are
the
people.
point's not lost on me. I just got a new graphics card. I fucking cracked that shit open.
Like,
I was like,
Hell yeah.
just look at it.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's something
It's
to be
like-
said about the fact that, like, and
I think it's just.
I get that if you don't do anything wrong in your entire life with a firearm, there's no reason that you should be held, fucking responsible for things that people do wrong, right? But at the end of the day, like, a gun is a tool to either kill something or threaten to kill something.
Right.
Sometimes you shoot cans with it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
So it's to me, it's like I would accept, like, I'm gonna grant the people who are like, God, that fucking Camaro's sexy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think you want to put his dick in a Camaro.
Yeah.
That's fine. Like, it's fucking weird.
Yeah.
And like,
But no
I'm
one's
not
getting
gonna drive
harmed.
your car.
Maybe
Right.
him.
But when you turn like literally like a lethal weapon into that kind of thing, it becomes like kind of weird. And I think even when we talk about like swords, it's like, well, people do it with swords, but swords are like, it's like a meme because you're like, no one actually like uses swords for like day to day. Like it is
Look
a
back 2 days ago.
it is a well, I mean, yeah, there's fucking the
One guy.
Oh, I was thinking of the old lady in the
Oh,
electric
that's-
wheelchair
she had
that
a
like
knife,
yeah, she got the Mario block with the knife.
Oh,
and
you didn't
she's
see the
just
guy
like-
who looked like he
But
died?
no.
from getting-
Yeah, because he was swinging a machete around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We can get into that in a second.
I
don't know.
guess. Yeah,
I don't know.
there is something weird. Like, I just think there's a. I know that other people. I know that people who don't do this exist. I'm not saying this to excuse them, but the circle of friends I have that like are gun enthusiasts, there's a degree of like, it's like, oh man, yeah, look at this new shit. It's fucking cool. Yeah. But then there's also like the other conversation of like, if I see you have that gun out and your finger is over the trigger and you're not aiming it at a target, I'm gonna kill you because that's ridiculous. Like, not literally kill you, but like you're like most. I won't say most, but the people in that I know, like, that's something that's so bad it can get you banned from like multiple ranges. Like,
Yeah.
People like there's a degree of seriousness that I like to see, and I think you're right in that more people should think that way and don't.
And this is what I'm about to say is not like there's no study to back this up.
Yeah.
This is just my experiences. I have a lot of people on Facebook. I don't know why I have them on Facebook. Maybe just to argue with them.
Yeah.
But they have kind of these, you know, they love guns and
Yeah.
they love, I don't know, fishing or whatever the fuck, and Bud Lights and whatever. But I'll see these kinds of posts that are like, I just got this new gun. I hope someone breaks into my house.
That shit's
And
wild.
it's like,
Oh, yeah, I haven't
what the
seen
fuck?
that
Dude, and I've seen it from multiple people where they just do
Holy.
the thing where they're like the meme is like, you know, sound of glass breaking at 2 a.m. and they're like, hot damn, I get to use my new shot. And it's like,
Holy shit.
why do people...
I have seen.
Why are they
post
so
where
interested?
They'll post a
Just
photo of their
killing
gun and
people.
they're like, let the looters try and like
Yeah.
loot something.
Like that kind of thing, right? That's kind of my point. Is it's not just a fascination with the weapon, but a fascination with the concept of getting to use it one day
I don't know that.
against another person. It's just fucking wild. And again, I'm not going to say that's a majority of people, but it's a weird thing. It's just a really weird fucking thing.
And
see
I
people
almost
do.
I can kind of understand if the person is kind of being like, I've been in an area where like looting and rioting and whatnot is happening. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want my possessions to get hurt. And you kind of going like, hey, I'm posting this online because that's where you guys are like organizing and whatnot. I have one of these. Don't come here. Like, I kind of get that mindset. Being excited about it is a little weird, and losing my signal to this TV is also a little weird. Kind of scares me because now I can't see what's going on in the recording. So, well, that's what the backup's for. So fuck it. I'm gonna leave it. Oh, and we're back.
Yeah, we're
Easy. Okay. All right. Cool.
Didn't know my computer was here.
Yeah, jeez, dude. That thing. I've had that computer for like. Oh man. Well, I guess no. There is one part. I had that computer since I was in college, and the only thing in it that is from that computer is one of the hard drives. That's it.
It's the Theseus ship of computers.
Yeah.
You know about that?
No,
Oh.
I just agreed.
It's
with
like
you.
this. It's,
for no apparent.
it's like this like philosophical like quandary. I don't know what the fuck.
Oh,
wifey with the boat.
At what point? Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah,
you
At what
switch
point
one
is it
part out
different?
and
Yeah,
it's the same boat, and then how many times you have to switch?
I
until
don't
it's
think
the
I
same
can say
boat.
that anymore. I think at this point I should probably stop saying that. Oh, I've had that computer since fucking college. When I haven't. That computer's pretty new. Like
Every single part has
yeah,
changed. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I guess we can dig into the riots at this point because we're kind of already talking about
Yeah.
it.
I want to make I don't know if it's like useful to make a distinction
Sure.
now because we're like, you know,
Yeah, no.
hour in or some shit.
Yeah, hour and 15, hour 14.
But I think there's like two sort of big points that stand out, and some people are having, you know, both conversations at the same time, and sometimes you focus on one or the other. Like, one is that there's like a pretty big racial dynamic to these things, right? Like, it seems to be that black people tend to suffer state violence, or some kind of discrimination, whether it's in law enforcement or the judicial system, and people seem to not be okay with that. And then the other one is just police in general abusing their power. And it's kind of like, well, if police abuse their power, oftentimes black people are the victim, but that itself is just an issue, right? It doesn't even necessarily need to be a racial component. It often is because of the nature of what we see. And you know, you can talk about implicit biases and you can talk about all that stuff, but I think there is just something to be said about the fact that we have a system, we have police forces, we have states that have access to force that are misusing them. And at what point do these people just need to be held accountable if they're not going to hold themselves accountable, right? This is not a great example because this wasn't a police killing, but we were talking about the Ahmaud Arbery thing before, took 2 months for people to even find out about it, and then stuff started happening. Then they started getting charged, then they got arrested. And it's like, it's the saying that's like, you judge a person's character by what they do when no one's looking. And it's like, if people weren't recording these videos, if people weren't finding all these screenshots and stuff about these deaths happening, nothing would fucking happen.
Do you think then a system similar to like that they have overseas with like CCTV is a good idea? Because I'll be honest with you, I kind of do. Like at this point, I think it's just worth it.
I was thinking, like, are we just gonna have like cameras?
I think it's worth it.
This is like the maybe like one of the biggest conversations to have about like governance as a whole is like, how far do you move the slider between security and freedom? Because every time you give a little to one, you lose a little bit of that other one.
I just don't know if it like what freedoms are lost in having public. Okay.
Nothing.
Can't like it's one thing if it's like.
I don't know if it's nothing.
If you're in. Yeah,
it's one thing if it's like, oh man, the government
the right to
has
privacy,
there is no right to privacy in public.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
that's the point, but like, yes, but then I'm talking about not is there, should there be,
So
like we are now in a system. Well, but I'm bringing it, kind of it's like a thought experiment, It's
Okay.
like, how many concessions are we willing to make? I mean, after 9/11, we saw like the Patriot Act. It was like a huge thing.
Yeah.
Where people are like, no, but you'll be more secure if we can check all your fucking cell phone records and wiretap you all the time. Check all your emails. It's like, well, technically that's true, but at what point do I just get to live my fucking life? Like, I'm going down the street. We have like facial recognition technology. We have cell phone pinging. Like, people already know where you are all the time, right? And it's like, how many more concessions do people have to make to just being able to live their life without being monitored 24/7? I mean, I don't have a good fucking answer. I'm just asking a question.
My opinion is that public security cameras, I'm for. I draw the line at like phone, like email, kind of data stuff. Yeah, you shouldn't. Like, I don't see why the government needs that information from me. What I do want is for a woman who's going for a jog at like fucking 11 p.m. at night, she should feel safe. And as it is right now, the only real way to do that is to have some sort of like armed protection or something like that. Not like another person, but like whether it's fucking a spray or like a gun or something of that nature. Like, and you could alleviate that by having stuff like that. Now, granted, it's not going to solve it because that shit exists in Europe and they still have similar problems. But I don't think it's a stretch to say that it's less frequent there than it is here.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, we have a lot of security cameras on basically every building and every fucking corner, where there's like a store or whatever.
Yeah.
Some of these like backwoods fucking places. I don't know if they're gonna go to Alabama and just hook up a fucking camera inside of like a beehive or some shit. I don't know what they're gonna do, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I wouldn't really know how to address like how do you solve this kind of issue. I think for me, it's just more of like it's a scary place to be, right? The idea again that like the people that are supposed to protect everyone, like if they abuse their power, like no one sees it happen, or like it's not like this huge outcry. Like, does anything get done? I mean,
No.
I kind of bring it up because like
I get what you're
with this
saying.
specific case of like the cop that just killed
George?
Floyd. I've seen posts of people are like, the cop got arrested. Like, what more do you want? It's like, what more do you want? I mean, people had to burn down fucking buildings for him to get arrested. Like, what we want, presumably,
Did that
is
happen
for something
before
like
or
this.
after?
it was kind of kicking up
Happened
before.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like it kind of got out, and people were like, "That's not good," and then people were getting mad, and then they're like, "Okay, we'll arrest them." And people were like, "We're still pretty fucking mad about it, though." Just for the record, but
I'm not saying that to be like they did it before.
No,
This is I was just curious.
It's an important point,
yeah.
right? But that's kind of it's the thing that everyone talks about with all these videos that go viral of these kind of like police killings. It's like again, if this didn't go viral, if millions and millions of people didn't see this, like what would have happened? And then that again begs the question, like what happens for all of the other ones that don't get recorded? It's a scary thought.
Have you questioned why one of the people standing there that was filming didn't try and act on doing more than just filming or saying something?
The person that recorded it happening?
I mean, there were multiple people recording, but yeah,
like not the cop.
Any of the people in there, yeah,
or not the cops,
not the cop, the pedestrians,
yeah.
Because there are people on both sides of the street that end up getting filmed, and then obviously there were also people watching that weren't filming.
It's
so I've questioned it. Like
I
complicated.
Think, I wouldn't. I guess the normal thing in my head goes, oh well, they didn't have a gun, and the guy who's like doing the bad thing does.
Right.
And even if they did have a gun, there are 3 other people there who also have a gun, and he's by himself with his one gun.
Right.
So like it's just the fear of threat, I guess. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's reasonable for a person that is not in a position of power to feel comfortable trying to insert themselves into a situation like that to try to dissolve it, because realistically what will probably happen is that they'll just end up in the same situation, not the literal same situation.
It could have been.
It could be, but
he's got 2 knees.
I don't want to go out kind of like we were saying about the all thing. I don't want to go out and be like they're always going to kill people. It's a possibility, but it's we feel good when we watch videos of people that go out of their way to try to stop something or get in the way of the cops doing something, but realistically, like, yeah, what do you walk by, you see 4 fucking cops standing there, and one dude's like being choked out, and you're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I just go there, they might turn a gun on me. Like, what the situation,
fuck? Like, would I have done it? Because obviously I would have wanted to do it.
Sure, I think most people would want to, yeah.
I'm, I guess, surprised no one even attempted to even get close to just see what the cops would do. Because I don't believe a cop's first reaction would be immediately pull out a gun and just shoot them.
Sure.
Give them a warning. So I'm kind of still surprised someone didn't even attempt to just walk up and try and do something.
I mean,
I think
we know
so.
The power thing, but
so I think if there were less cops, that'd be even more dangerous. So like if there were more people, more bystanders, and like say there were 2 cops, 2 of those people just weren't there, it would be super dangerous for you to be like. Because
they're now overwhelmed. And,
right.
Yeah,
and even in that case, they were definitely overwhelmed, or outnumbered, I should say. So while I think if somebody approached them, one of the other 3 officers probably would have stopped them. But if they had, say, 3 people approach them, I think that guns would have been drawn at that point, for sure. Like, it only makes sense to me in my head if you're... Guy had handcuffs on already, so like detaining wherever you want to call it. There's no reason for them to do that in the first place. But like if I'm holding down somebody with like my leg or my knee or whatever, and another person's coming and approaching me, if I still want to keep this person down, I need to figure out a way that I can keep that person away from me. And the only thing that makes sense to me is to draw a weapon. Now, whether or not you truly intend to fire that weapon is another thing. If you intend on using it to, like, say, get back, but have no intention of actually firing on that person, that's another thing. I don't know. There's a lot of
The only other thing that I also thought of is if someone were to have approached, would it have caused that cop to just make the slightest of movement?
That's true.
To get off of it.
That's true. Yeah.
Even for the split second where you can get air.
I mean, it's possible, but I guess
there's so many scenarios.
For me, I couldn't possibly like expect a person. I mean, I already said, but I couldn't possibly expect a person to act against like people that have very clear positions of power, because it's like you're not making a decision just off of like, oh, I'll just make whatever's the best choice. Like your choice is kind of being acted against by the understanding that they have significant force to deal with you as well.
Yeah,
and that if you go in there, not only are you're not just, oh, maybe I'll help the situation, you're going to escalate the situation, and you'll likely make it worse than it is. You might have saved this person's life,
there's too many
or
what-ifs for
they
sure.
might have been like, you're within arm's length of my gun, now I have to draw my weapon on you. And now you're freaking out. Now, imagine this situation. This dude's on the floor, being choked out. You approach to try to do something about it. Now the gun pulls the cop pulls a gun on you. And another bystander walks by. Same thought process. Oh, I should do something. There's a whole fucking crowd of people. What's gonna happen? You know, so it's very difficult to deal with a situation like that. Yeah, it's fucked.
Yeah. So do you guys think that the riots are justified? Do you think that it makes, like, this happening makes sense?
So my stance is...
I feel like I'm causing Steven physical pain.
You ask like 8-word questions, and I'm like, oh my god, it's so hard to answer.
My stance is that I disagree with the looting, but I agree with everything else. I don't think looting, stealing, burning of a business, especially like one that's like family owned or something, not even like giant corporation. Obviously, they have billions of dollars. Like, that isn't as big of a deal, but it's still like, I don't agree with it.
I agree. I think that's shit.
And it's getting to the point where people are now just using the excuse of, oh, they're doing it, so now let's get our county to go do it. It's literally now just happening everywhere.
Yeah.
Miami, everywhere. Like, why?
Yeah.
And it's like Gucci stores, and like originally it was just a Target, and it was because I guess there were multiple reasons. It was either they were supporting cops in a way, or they were denying people who were sprayed with pepper spray, milk, and whatnot. I don't know if that's factual or not, but that's what I had read.
That's what people say.
Right, that's what people said.
It's really,
I don't
it's really
believe
stupid
that,
fucking defense.
I mean, that's true.
Technically, it's true.
If it's
just a
true-
really fucking stupid thing to say.
Right. To justify basically destroying an entire...
Because then you could literally be like, oh, if Best Buy sold the fucking motherboards that power their laptops, can we burn down the Best Buy?
Yeah.
If they're wearing steel-toed shoes from Walmart, it's like, what the fuck? Like,
I don't agree in any sense with looting. It's giving more and more people just an excuse to
Steal.
break the law.
Yeah.
Like, what everyone was just against, someone murdering someone, which is against the law. You're like, all right, now
Let's
all
just
us
do these.
thousands plus people, let's just go break the law too. Like, sure, I get that you want like an eye for an eye in a sense. Like, they did something wrong, let's do something wrong. But like,
I don't think most situations are solved that way.
no, they're not.
So the counter to my argument, which was given by my brother, and kind of made me go, oh, okay, you know what? Actually, that makes sense. Because at first, my thought process was like, I think rioting is stupid. I don't understand the point of it. You're literally just causing chaos for what sake? He explained to me the thought process of like, if you break the law, say you're speeding, the government gives you a ticket and it costs you money. That is your punishment. It costs you money. The thought process, I guess, in a riot is you cannot ticket the government, but you can, however, cause enough damage that the government has to pay for it, thus giving them a ticket. So the eye for an eye. The problem is, if people actually wanted to do that, well, then they would do that to like lampposts and like fire hydrants and stuff like that, not businesses, because that's not the government, and not even then, like, it's not necessarily the government. It's an insurance. Yeah, like, yeah, it's not. You're not really like it. I get it, but it's not something that I would do because it doesn't logically make sense to me.
You know, I bet a lot of people had that same mindset too, where like, I would never go looting, but then they're seeing either friends or just a whole bunch of other people like, oh, this is free money.
Yeah.
Free shopping, like, oh, my Christmas list is done. Like,
Jesus.
Like, there's definitely people out there that are doing, but it's what it is.
Jeez, man. I don't know, Steven, you've been awfully quiet.
Just trying to think of what
I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna answer, and I just want to change one word.
Okay.
I want to change the word justified.
Okay.
'Cause I don't like that word.
Okay.
So, do I agree with looting? No. Do I agree with rioting? Not necessarily. Do I understand rioting? Yes.
I think most people get it.
And do I think maybe, I don't know if this is a hot take, do I think it's important? Yes. Protesting is obviously like one of the fundamental rights we have
Sure.
as an American. The ability to go out and protest. And I think a majority, like I said for the other thing, a vast majority of people that are protesting are doing so peacefully and are not antagonizing. But what we've seen is sort of a cycle and a pattern of state violence in inaction and state violence in inaction. And I'll cycle back around to this, but when we talk about protesting and violent protesting versus non-violent protesting, my family were very vocal about Colin Kaepernick and his kneeling for the national anthem. It's disrespectful. It's fucking rude. Get this fucking asshole off the stage. And a bunch of other things I can't say because it would demonetize your YouTube. So
I'm pretty sure already there.
Yeah. Probably, we'll see.
Whatever. I don't want to add to it.
Yeah.
And those were peaceful protests. It was not only peaceful protesting, but it's possibly the most powerful way for a single person to protest peacefully. They have a huge stage, millions of eyes on them, and do something for basically a zero amount of time, a minute or something, that doesn't actually hurt anybody, and you don't even have to say shit. And it was powerful, but people were very vocally against that thing. Now those same people that were adamantly opposed to that thing turn around and they say, well, why the violence? Why the rioting? Why the looting? And for me, it's kind of indicative that to a lot of these people, they don't want violent protesting, and they say they want peaceful protesting, but unless the peaceful protesting gets in the way of the song I like, or what if they get on, and this is one I know a lot of people don't, I know a lot of people don't agree with me on this one, but like, what if the peaceful protesting is standing in the middle of a highway and closing the highway down? There's people that have to get to work, dude. There's people that are working. For me, like, what a lot of these people are actually saying is that they want to protest that they don't want to look at.
Yeah.
Or they don't have to look at.
Yeah.
They want you to sit on the side of the road. They want you to have your signs out. I'm going to stare totally away from you, and I'm going to drive right by. And while you sit there and you talk about how your people or your citizens or your friends or your family are being killed by the state, I don't want to pay attention to it. Don't put it on my television. Don't put it on my YouTube videos. Don't put it on my fucking newspapers. I don't give a fuck. Protest it, but don't get in my way. And peaceful protesting, again, Colin Kaepernick does it. I don't want to fucking look at it, dude. Like, that's what it comes down to. I just don't want to think about this shit. I'm here for the football game, dude. We're playing football, dude.
It got to the point where they were told to not show him on TV for any player that would kneel.
Really? Right. So,
yeah. And then they reverted back because there's backlash on it.
Yeah,
so then they would still show clips, but definitely not as much as what it originally was with Kaepernick. Because other players started to do it and follow him.
Yeah.
And they still do.
I saw some coaches and whatnot do that too. Like, they joined arms and they were all kneeling. Like,
then at one point they're even told if they're going, some teams, my team being the Miami Dolphins, they even told them, because they had probably next to Kaepernick, probably the second or third most represented player to do the kneeling. Kenny Stills, which he's no longer on the Dolphins, they traded him away. They were told to stay in the locker room if they were going to kneel and not come out. But then obviously backlash again. And
right. People don't want to have their normal life disrupted by having to listen to the shit other people are dealing with. And not to go too SJW, that's a really privileged position for a lot of people to have. To say, sure, maybe your friends are being killed. Sure, maybe your brother was stopped at a traffic light for a broken taillight and got killed by a cop. Sure, maybe your dad was killed because, he was at a fucking at a school and he didn't want to show his ID or whatever. But fucking pay attention to it, right? And so going back to the riots, I can't in good conscience say I agree with them, but I think this is something that needs to be seen. That not only is there a problem, and a problem that you can't look away from, but it's a problem that people are fed up with. That there is a boiling point, right? We talk about, at least the memers and the LARPers and all the fucking LOL conservatives always talk about like, you know, what is America? What really is the country, right? Like we believe in the Second Amendment, we believe in the Constitution. So what do we have happening right now? We have a system that's put in place by our government that's against state violence, that's being used unjustly against its citizens. People are crying out, people are begging for things to change, and nothing is happening. And it happens again and again and again. And all the while, these people sit back and they say that they care about America because they respect a song, and they respect a flag, and they respect fucking hot dogs, and they respect the White House, but they don't actually give a fuck about the actual thing that makes people American, which is the ability to look at your government and say, you need to be scared of all the people who are tired of what's happening. And so for that, I think it's important to show that kind of action. So that's what I was thinking of.
I
don't know what.
It is.
And don't steal stuff because that's stupid. This is maybe the actual hot take, and this is gonna sound super fucking papega, but like you in a situation like this, don't steal stuff, just burn it down.
So like I was linked. I didn't look at the article or the website yet, but I guess it's a scholar one. But it shows how looting and rioting is actually beneficial. Statistically, I didn't look at it yet, but that's what one person messaged me who wasn't.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I'll have to look at it. But
do you remember what it was called?
I mean, I can pull it up.
I was gonna say I could grab it up here.
Actually, don't. But yeah, it was like I messaged it because of my post of me saying how I don't condone looting in any way.
I think another point to be made is that there are people who seem to make this point about how like the looting and the rioting like takes away from what's actually happening. I think that's like a two-head take. Not, you know, no offense to anyone who thinks of that, but I think it's very, very easy to say there's a part of something that you don't agree with, and then the other thing is still happening, you know? Like, again, I call out a lot of people in my family for doing this thing, but really fucking vocal about the looting.
Send the link to you.
Yeah. I wish I probably should have got this set up on Discord first, but
if not,
it's fine.
Let me see if I can. If you here, there's two different
Quality
links. One's a
production.
PDF though.
Send it to me and I'll superimpose it in post because I don't see a purpose for like I can't get it from there to here like quickly. So I don't see how somebody could say that there's no no you're good. It was my fault for having my notification and whatnot on. I don't see how people could say that writing in itself is pointless, but I get where they're coming from. I just don't know if their method is useful or effective.
I mean that's fair.
Yeah.
To go on another small tangent. I'm so sorry that I'm just like I'm doing the fucking thing. But like another like important point of like context, I guess, is like we know that in U.S. history, in American history, there have been a lot of instances of like big drastic changes that we've needed to happen. Women's suffrage, civil rights, you know, the ending of, you know, Jim Crow laws and all that stuff. And I think it's really easy to kind of like have a soft rewrite of history and pretend that all of those things were done within the boundaries of what we consider like very peaceful, very like, you know, respectful sort of demonstrations. A lot of these were violent. A lot of these were riots. A lot of these were pushing back against the establishment. And not to say that it just is always the case, but we will look back at moments like these and realize how important it was that they happened, even if right now no one thinks it's okay that it's happening. Like, I think back then, like, we can look back and be like, when the civil rights riots were happening and people were getting blasted by fire hoses and people were being sicked on by dogs, and you're like, what the fuck is going on, dude? Just chill out. Just like vote for people to legislate, you know, whatever. And it's like, well, now we can look back and be like, they did the right thing. But at the time, how many people were like, yeah, what the fuck are these people doing? This is wrong. Why are you burning buildings down? Why are you throwing bricks into fucking places? I think it's really easy to go back and sort of fit the things that seem sort of like non-conforming into like a really neat place of history. And I think hopefully in the future we'll look back again and be like, yeah, it was pretty fucked up that it took this long.
I wonder if that strategy has ever been tried and failed. That the concept of like fixing things from the inside out, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
Like I'm not very well researched on it, so I'm sure maybe it has and it did fail, but I can't think of a situation where it has.
Right. I mean,
Like-
it's a constant like push and pull between sort of the social dynamic of how people feel and the legislative part of it, right? Like people might not push for any kind of laws to make change until there's like this really vocal outcry, or maybe there is some kind of legislative change, like the ending of segregation, and it turns out that doesn't actually shift everybody's opinions of the social standard of that system. So it's tough, but again, for a situation like this, you're like, well, what has to happen for there to actually be a change? Like, what needs to go down, right? Like, when people ask, nothing happens. When people put signs up, nothing fucking happens. Now, that stuff is important. It's important to show solidarity, and it's important to show numbers, and there's obviously strength in numbers. But again, there is a boiling point. You can only ignore things like this for so long until people just get fucking fed up with it.
Yeah.
And I think we're very obviously seeing that now. And again, to sort of go back to what I was saying before, like there is no deniability for what has happened. There was just a murder of a man by a cop, and you can't argue that anything was happening other than that.
Yeah.
And I think when people see that and nothing was going to happen, they were like, this is not okay.
I would agree with you.
He tried to make the excuse that he was resisting arrest. It was wild, man.
So I looked at the footage a couple times. It's
I think there's like 3 different videos that I've seen of different angles.
there's
Resisting arrest is like the silver bullet
Yeah.
of police.
regardless
cases.
of let's assume for a second that he did. That still doesn't
No, it
justify
doesn't
what
justify-
happened.
Right.
But I remember watching one of the video footage. The angle, unfortunately, was from the other side of the police car, so you couldn't really see what was going on the other side. I wonder if there's. I'm sure there's another. Yeah, it's fine. I'm sure there's another angle of that is better for that, but I haven't found it yet. But essentially, I could see how somebody could come to that conclusion.
Somebody
What was it? The one where he fell?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it was from
Like
the
where he was
other
he was
corner of the
getting
street.
pulled out of the
Yeah.
car and like fell,
Yeah.
and then he got up and then fell again later.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, there's
I
like
mean,
I
three
can
different-
Bro, like-
I can see how somebody would make that
Sure,
that
they'd watch
that-
it
like
real
you
quick.
Yeah.
could, but like that's so funny. We have 4 cops and one dude is holding him down, and it's like, what if he's resisting arrest? It's like, I don't know.
that
Just fucking quadruple your fucking power then if he's resisting arrest. What the fuck? Like, that's not. I don't get why like there. And then that's not even to. There's also a group of people that seem to just think like cops should just be like fucking executioners. It's like, I think unless literally someone's life is imminently in danger, a cop should never be resorting to lethal force. I feel like that's fair. I feel like that's not even contentious. If the cop's life is not in danger, the civilian's life is not in danger, there's no reason to use lethal force. Now, the second that happens, well, yeah, then you need to protect people. That makes sense. You need to protect yourself. That makes sense. But there are people that are like, oh, if a guy robs from a store and he's getting away, just shoot him. And it's like, well, what the fuck are you talking about? And people like actually think this shit where they're like, if they're resisting arrest, just you fucking, I don't know, take out your baton and just smack him in the skull. And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with people? I don't get it. People think that if someone steals or someone whatever, that they're like, yeah, dude, you broke the law. So guess what, bro? Judge Dredd. Like, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with people, but yeah, it's crazy to me. Like, I think the job of a police officer, obviously to maintain peace and to protect the community, but to be the first step in the legal system. Get them in cuffs, get them in custody, and then let the judge and let the jury, let everything run its course. They should not be the person deciding whether or not someone dies and then figuring out if that was legal. Again, there's instances where I'm not blind to how difficult it has to be a cop. And even, and maybe, hey, I've been spitting all this SJW shit. I'm about to lose all the fucking SJW viewers right now. But like, it has to be one of the most terrifying positions to be in, to be a cop, in one of these riots right now and be sitting there with hundreds of people, thousands of people around you, screaming and pushing and throwing shit, and everyone there fucking hates you.
Yeah.
How does that feel? You know, you don't know when someone's just screaming or when someone's gonna raise a weapon or when someone's gonna reach for your gun. You don't know. It has to be difficult, right? And I don't think for situations like what's happening now, I don't think cops are trained for this. Like, I think there's a point to be made about being like, you know, oh, if there's a cop that, you know, was really trigger happy and shot at a dude for like a stoplight infraction or whatever. It's like, well, then you could talk about like, what are they trained? How are they trained to de-escalate situations? Cops don't get trained to deal with fucking 1,000-person mobs in riot gear at night, fucking Molotov cocktails being thrown around.
Impossible to train for that.
Right. How do you prepare for a situation like that? So these people are going in super unprepared, literally into the fucking, like, you know, the shark infested waters. It's tough. Yeah. I get that it's tough. But using violence in those situations just agitates the situation. Just agitates everything.
Yeah.
Talking too much.
No, you're good, man. It's fine. I don't know how much time you guys have. How much you want to devote to this.
I'm here. Joe, you know.
I know.
You
but
know.
I like to try to be respectful of people's time,
I appreciate it.
If you want, we can keep going because some of the stuff you guys have brought up is addressed in this. But it's also not short. So I don't want to keep going if you guys have other stuff.
It's up to you. I don't know how much time you have.
Okay. Oh. We can share a microphone. There is a seat right here. Okay, hold on. I said we could share a microphone, but I didn't.
I don't want to make.
No, you're good. It's just a matter of
Michael,
Every time.
extending this.
Michael, please.
Okay, this will be fine. It might make sense to. Might make sense to. This will work. This will be fine. It's fine.
Scuffed.
Scuffed. Yes. Fucking train wreck.
I've been there.
I actually kind of like the whole scuffed like nature of things. It kind of feels kind of. I don't know.
It's like when it's like instead of going to like the really fancy chain restaurant, you go to like that hole in the wall pizza place where the people still speak like Italian, but then you also hear them say racial slurs. But the pizza's really good. The pizza's so good. So good. The garlic knots are so good. Yeah.
So I guess what did you want to? I don't know if you want to introduce yourself first, but now that you're here,
Lyndsey, I'm Mike's fiance. Yeah, that's it. I just like there's some things going forward that I'll probably want to chime in on, but right now, we'd have to start all over if I was going to comment on every single thing. But.
Okay. Well, I guess let's start where we stopped with like riots. Like, do you think what was the word that you changed justified out for?
Yeah, justified is a really loaded word.
I can say, like, talking about it with my friends who are the benefactors of riots, because most of my friends, including myself, are LGBTQ people.
Okay.
And of course, Stonewall was a 5-day riot started by a black trans woman. So
True.
I don't condone purposely setting buildings on fire just for the fact that it's gonna, elicit a reaction from the police. However, I understand where people are coming from because, like, I'm never going to understand what people of color go through and, having the same problems that we've talked about already on this podcast. However, I understand where they're coming from and wanting to see things burn because they're so angry because, like, there was a riot for the Civil Rights Act and then nothing changed.
Yeah.
Like, the discrimination is still very prevalent, and so this is their way of showing that they're angry. So I can't say that I condone it, but I understand it.
I guess my thought process is if the riot that happened for the Civil Rights Act happened, nothing changed, and then your next action is another riot. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, so maybe try something else. Like
Right.
that's kind of where my brain, the logic in my brain goes, hey, what? Like that's literally the definition of insanity, you know? Like,
Right.
but I don't know.
And I mean, like, Ferguson was a riot that happened, and that was just immediate. Some of the riots that have happened have been a product of peaceful protests that turned very violent because of people that weren't there for that protest specifically have come in and incited violence, causing a police reaction, and it's a cycle.
That's true.
So this time it's a little
the
different.
Minneapolis mayor, I believe, was reported that the people arrested on like the first night were all from out of state.
Exactly. So this time it's a different like structure for these riots than when it was the civil rights, because that was a direct reactionary cause.
That just reminded me. So like in my county, in Orange County, I was trying to decide whether or not that was worth saying or not.
Yeah.
So right after, I guess some things happened, like late, somewhere out over that way.
Over in Altamont?
Yeah, there was like a riot or something, something similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
And their reaction to that was to place a curfew. And I thought, and I was thinking, I was like, well, on one hand, I kind of get it, because yes, if people, if they're law enforcement or fire departments or whatever, like those systems, they may not be able to handle that workload, and if they can't, then like way more damage, way like people can get hurt, people can lose their lives, like it could be really bad. So by implementing a curfew, it allows them to kind of curtail that. However, it is a little weird that you're almost like preemptively like don't do that here. It's almost as though like they're pulling that freedom of expression away from people by saying stay the fuck home.
And
Right.
that to me goes back to the Kaepernick thing, where he protested peacefully, but they didn't want that. Or the basketball players in the Eric Gardner case said, they all wore shirts that said "I can't breathe," and they said "shut up and dribble." Like, they don't want to see it is the thing. They don't want to have to actively acknowledge that this exists. Protest it, but I don't want to see it in my community.
It bothers a lot of people, but like the only real effective protests are disruptive protests.
Mm-hmm.
People don't like to think that way. They like to think that signs and shirts are effective. And I mean, they can vocalize things, but real change comes from making people look and changing the way that people go about their day.
And I think they also would look at, the people that are rioting now for this cause, look at the people that went and rioted with actual, automatic weapons at a Capitol, where weapons shouldn't be allowed in the building.
Yeah.
And they were white, and nothing happened to them.
I remember reading an article about something similar.
So I'm sure that this is also like, nothing happened to them, but you're tear gassing us. It's more reactionary.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I often think about like, I think I talked about this on the podcast with Alex, or maybe we talked about it after, where kind of the way I conduct myself, both in like professional sphere and like just in general, I guess, is with the mindset of I understand where most like black stereotypes come from. Like I get it. Like if whether it's from TV or from your own like lived experience or some interaction you've had with a black person, it's something that has kind of funneled the way that I dress, the way that I talk, the way that I like interact with people. Because if I were in that person's shoes, I too would go, well, I saw this one thing happen, and this person sure does look, and it seems to be acting exactly like that other person. So yes, I am going to be on guard. Yes, I am going to be like, it's one of those things where people are like, oh, well, people shouldn't judge people for the way they look. I'm like, you innately do that. Like it's not a thing of like, oh, you're a bad person doing it. No, you do that to survive. You do that like as a normal human thing. So when I hear people say, oh, well, these people who had guns and whatnot, they went to their protest and like it was way more civil than a protest where there's a majority of people of color, and it's gotten to the point where people are getting like rubber bullets and whatnot. I understand it. I think it's bad, but I get it. I understand where that person's brain is at. Like, you see a thing that looks like something that was bad before, and so you're reacting to it, assuming that it will be bad.
Man, I don't think you're wrong, but I think even though we might think like that, like instinctually, I think most people should be like self-aware enough to like act against it, even if you feel that way. Like this is something weird I've talked about with like I think with Michael before about people's opinions about social movements or I think we were talking about like homosexuality or whatever, where it's like, what do you do about someone who like doesn't agree with that thing? Like, do we just tell them that they're not allowed to think that? It's like, for me, I don't actually give a fuck. I would like to live in a world where people don't care, but I don't give a fuck if you care or don't care. I give a fuck to what you do. So if you don't like it, but you don't hurt these people, you don't act against these people, you don't vote against these people, which obviously you can get into how do you police that, whatever, but the sort of the point I'm getting at is like, what I care about are like results.
Sure.
So it's maybe you do have an implicit bias, but are you conscious enough to say that shouldn't matter in this situation? Because if I act upon my implicit biases, I'm basically telling these people they're not completely American citizens. Like, these people are American citizens. You're like kind of an American citizen, but you're also a threatening American citizen.
That makes sense when it comes to police, but how do you tell that to like the gas station owner who week after week there's some guy who comes in, different person every time, but somebody with darker skin, black guy comes in, hoodie up, and steals something. Okay, you go, okay, well, I wasn't like super suspicious of this guy because he's a citizen, and I want to treat him like an equal, and I don't want to assume that he would do that. So this guy, he stole something from me, but okay, next time I'm still gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. How many times do you give somebody the benefit of the doubt to the point where it becomes wired in your brain that's like, okay, like,
I mean,
what
for
you
for
see
a specific
like,
person, I mean, obviously
not a person,
right,
I'm saying
right.
It's like a like, so if it's different people, but they're all the same color, they're all the same race,
yeah.
But like, you see this happen over months.
What I would ask there is like fuck. I mean, this is like a really kind of like specific thing to talk about. But like when we talk about situations like that, like I don't think it would be like a binary. Do you judge person by their skin color or not? Right? Like someone walks in and they steal something from you. Like, what's to stop you from being like, maybe I shouldn't trust people who wear hoodies?
Sure. So
like
that's fair.
There are other things acting upon this person's internal biases to make them jump to what thing they're looking out for. And if there's like a narrative and a history and a sort of proponent for people to be like, people of this color probably commit more crime. People of this color probably more dangerous. Like, that person's not going to come to this assumption by themselves. Are they going to judge, people this tall are dangerous, people that dress a specific way are this dangerous, people with this color hair are dangerous? If they're picking the color of their skin, there's probably stuff somewhere out there that's affecting that decision.
The reason I chose that is because it keeps going. There's a continuation to that. So like, so after this X amount of time, you say, okay, well, it's a hoodie thing, or it's a big shirt, or like baggy pants, something that can carry like a lot of stuff. Then the question becomes, okay, so now you have a culture where that is the norm, or that is cool, or that's a part of just that culture's thing. Do you curtail that? Do you put a sign up that, similar to how you say no t-shirt, no service, do you say, okay, well, you can't wear hoodies here? Like, how... I'm not saying... I don't like adding the slippery slope thing to this, because I don't think it really is that same situation. But I do think that it goes back to what I was saying before, where I think some concessions have to happen in order for us to work together. Because in this case, if it's just about the clothing or like that style of wear, and one particular like group of people is more, they use that or wear that type of clothing more often, now you have a problem. Because yes, it is about the clothing, but now you have that clothing being attached to like a culture. So then what do you do?
I mean, maybe, but this I mean, it's
Like-
it's a difficult hypothetical to piece out because then you're like, oh well, if we say, oh, well, it's people with hoodies, and you're like, oh well, it turns out that most people with hoodies are black, and then it's like, well, what if we keep going down that way? What color, what type of hair do all the black people that wear hoodies have?
Well, I think
and then
the
is there
hair-
a commonality
the hair-
there?
The hair is irrelevant because the hair has nothing to do with that. We're talking,
But maybe it's a pattern. Maybe there's a pattern of how these people look beyond just the color of their skin. Or if we go what they wear and then what they wear and then the color of their skin, then you're like, well, what they wear, the color of their skin, and how they present themselves, or what they wear, the color of their skin, and this other thing. Like, I just don't know.
I'm not necessarily adding the color of their skin because I think there's a lot of there's a decent number of like white people who have like cornrows and whatnot, and then they also wear like very.
Sorry,
baggy
my understanding of this example was that it was like even if we go to hoodies, then there would be like a subcategory of like who commits crimes that wears hoodies, and then it would be that thing.
That's like you're kind of on
Okay.
where I'm going, but what I'm basically saying is where does at what point do you connect a pattern to a culture, and then if you do connect a pattern to the culture, do you tell that culture to change so that like you don't like you see what I'm saying, like you don't want to do that ideally, but like it's the logical thing. It's the logical thing would be okay. Well, people that are wearing very baggy clothing, like hoodies and like fucking what were those jeggings, the big fucking pants or whatever. You know,
Parachute pants.
what were they
You
called?
used to wear them, right? When you were in high
What,
school?
the trip pants?
The trip pants.
Yeah.
Like just like, but that's I'm laying out this scenario. I don't know
Sure.
if that is I don't know how the correct way to deal with that is.
I mean, I guess like this is, Joe. I don't want to say this,
No,
but I don't really know what to make of this hypothetical anymore because I don't really know how to address it. You know, like I get what you're saying,
Yeah.
but I'm like I don't really know how to answer it and what kind of point I really want to be making here. I guess like for me, what I would like to see, and I'll kind of like I'll pull it back and make it a little more abstract, just
I might
so that
be doing
I
a
don't
really bad
complicate
job of
it.
explaining like where
I'm fucking Papago, okay? I'm literally so I don't know. But for me, I don't want people ideally to judge people by like immutable characteristics. If there's something about someone that cannot change, I don't think it's right to judge that person on that thing.
Okay,
I don't like that.
sure.
And then if there is something that is leading you to believe that there are these like abstract connections between like a person's like skin color or whatever, like I would want, and this is gonna be so fucking King Kona. This is like I just want people to just be at least educated enough to know that that's really stupid. Like you can protect yourself in ways that maybe people could view as racist or discriminatory, right? I think we've even talked about this before, but there was like a North Carolina like bill that was like to stop for voter ID laws.
Oh,
They're
yeah,
going to
yeah,
change
yeah.
voter
Yeah,
ID
yeah, I
laws,
remember that, yeah.
and people were like, "This is racist," and everyone's like, "What's racist about voter ID laws? Everyone can get a voter ID law." And then when you look into it, it's like, oh well, like specifically targets like what kind of like they literally asked for what information or the information for like what kind of IDs like black people carried in the area and how far certain black communities were from certain places that could give those IDs out, and then they made it a specific way to make it as difficult as possible for specific people to do shit. It's like, oh well, maybe it is possible to take this thing that doesn't seem racist and make it racist. It doesn't have to be like that. It could happen, right? So maybe a dude's like, I just don't like people that wear baggy clothes. It's like, well, it turns out 100% of the people that walk into your store with baggy clothes are black. It's like, well, I mean, fuck, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I just don't want baggy clothes. I mean, the hope would be that if a white person walks in with baggy clothes, you're not
Also,
like, hello, fellow person, here's your fucking Twix. Or you would not want that to happen. You'd want them to hold up to what they, claim.
Right.
I think maybe to put it this way, for like that way of thinking is, take Walmart for instance. They have employees that are specifically there, and Target does too. It's called loss prevention, that follow people of a certain race around because it's been a learned behavior.
Yeah.
If a white person walked in next to a person of color, doesn't matter what race, wearing the same exact clothes, that white person would not be followed around again because it's a learned behavior.
Yeah.
So like this hypothetical is kind of vague and like loosely, I'm not sure where you're trying to go with it.
I'm not so much attaching it to the color. I'm attaching it to the culture. That's what I'm trying to do.
Right. So I think that turns back around to it's a learned behavior. That,
By the loss prevention officer or by
no,
the
but
person?
like the person, they see this and it's happening repeatedly, and it's like the same type of person every time,
Mhm.
and then it's a learned behavior. Like that's what they look like, that's what I have to protect myself against. So it's learned, and I don't know how we get to the session to where it's not known.
I guess
I want to understand. What point are you trying to make?
Yeah.
the point I'm trying to make is the very first one that I talked about, where like sometimes sometimes I think what has to happen in order for everyone to get along is that sometimes if the bad thing is attached to your culture has to adapt. It has to change and work within the lines of everyone else. And I understand how like rough that sounds and like how insensitive that thought is, but I don't know how else to fix that problem. Like
I mean, it's
like
it feels really difficult to address because talking about like things that are connected to culture, like culture is like always shifting and changing and being altered. And then you get into like, well, is it natural changing? Is it, you know, a forced change upon a culture? What technically is what culture are we talking about? Because even culture is like, usually we talk about it like pretty loosely. Like we say like black culture, but then you're like, what is black culture?
When I was growing up, like I think there were very, very clear things that you would see black people do and white people do. There weren't many Hispanic people in Bishop Hill, South Carolina when I was going through middle school. That changed around like high school, and there was a large influx. But for a long period of time, it was just black and white. Those were the only two people you could see in that town. City. But so my question would become, okay, so if the small snapshot of the culture in the black community was all hip hop, all like things that like not glorified but talked about or brought to the forefront, like crime and like these things that are illegal, right? Drugs, all that good stuff. If those things are attached to that snapshot of culture and they are bad, do you tell this group of people to change their culture so that they don't have problems? I guess that is the condensed version of what I'm trying to get to. Does that make more sense?
It makes sense, but I guess it's
like
it does make sense, but it's difficult to address kind of culture as like a thing, because culture is just like pretty fluid, you know, ever changing, kind of like vacuous concept. Like we know when we talk about like what's Hispanic culture, what's American culture, like we know what those things mean, but when you get to the fringes of it, you're like, well, is this culture? Is this not culture? Because even when we talk about like hip hop glorifying like violence, and I was like, they do, but there's like a lot of like country songs that talk about shooting people, and we just don't give a fuck because we just haven't been trained to look at them the same way. And I think, you know, there's just so much that to piece apart when we're talking about a culture, especially, you know, not to go back to my fucking SJW chapter 102, but it's like if we accept that like certain groups of people are where they are because of things that have happened, like we can't be surprised about what kind of culture they have. And there is no monolith to go to be like the culture changes. Like that has to come from societal change. And if we want culture to change, then what we need to do is help these people get out of whatever situation we think is bad. So if we don't want crime to happen, we need to help these people get better jobs, get a better education, and pull them out. It doesn't have to be a black or white thing.
Do you think we're at a point though where if they were to change and like the things that they were told that like need to be changed and everything, that it wouldn't matter? People would still look at them the same?
No.
You think people's perspectives would?
I say no because of the life that I have lived. Sure. Because and granted, this is one of those anecdotal things, but like I had friends in South Carolina that had like Confederate flags on their F-150. Like I would go around and I played Yu-Gi-Oh with them. We'd travel to Georgia. We'd play like whatever. Like these are my good friends. And I think the reason why I was able to be friends with these people was because I am very clearly different than what the stereotypical like black guy would be in most of those people's heads. And because I was different, they didn't connect those two things. And that doubles back to what I was saying before. It was like, do you adapt to fit in, or is that the wise decision? Is that the right play to make? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
Or do you just say, nope, this is like this is the stuff my dad liked, this is the stuff my granddad liked, I'm gonna keep doing this stuff. Yes, it's gonna cause me problems. Yes, because I'm blasting fuck the police, like, the police are gonna have a problem with that. But like, if you made the decision to say, you know what? Yes, that's a part of like that's been like my family thing, but like, if I do this, it has a negative impact on me. I'm not going to do this, and instead, I'm going to do something else. Like, is that a good or bad thing? Is what I'm getting at, or the question that I'm presenting.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to just like circle back to like an answer I gave for something else before, but
maybe I'm saying the same thing over and over.
No. I mean, it's not. But I mean, like, maybe I'm just like too deterministic. I mean, I barely even think free will exists. We don't have to talk about that. But like,
okay.
I really do think that a lot of people, and maybe this is like really presumptuous too, but I think it's a rare trait to have, to be like exceptionally self-aware about a situation you're in. I think a lot of people just live their day-to-day lives, and if those things that they grow up in and those cultures that we talk about and those things, those tendencies they have come from outside sources, I think it's really difficult, again, for me to feel comfortable telling like individual people to change. And so if I wanted to see a change in like general outlooks in society, I want systemic changes to education and to the things that actually cause these problems. Because you can go to a couple people and be like, just be different. But why do they have to be different if maybe we can have a system where people don't have to end up, wanting to be involved in crime? And I'm not even just talking about black people, just any kind of situation like that. I have to add
this small caveat that it wasn't, for me, it wasn't like, oh, I'm doing these things so that I can fit in. It was more of just like, I'm doing these things because I actually enjoy them. Like, I like, this is like, it was,
right.
It was me also being like, oh, okay, I actually enjoy this. I'll keep doing
right.
this.
But that comes down to, and this is where it gets like really iffy, because I turn into the fucking like, can we measure every atom in the universe? But it's like, there might be people that you talk to that a majority of people never talk to, or a thing you watched or listened to that a lot of people never watched or listened to.
Sure,
and if those things
yes.
affect the way you think, then, not to take away like agency, but like if other people don't get those things and it's really normal for people to not have access to those things, it's hard. Like, if a person grows up in a community that's really poor, and the people that make a lot of money are people that sell drugs and buy drugs, and those people grow up with a family and a dad that goes around and he buys drugs and sell drugs, and his cousins and his brothers and his sisters, they talk about wanting to go out and beat the shit out of people. And again, this is not a racial thing even. I'm literally just talking like economic, right? Like, it's just down to that. Like, if a person grows up like that, how could I reasonably expect this person to be like, actually, I should really reconsider the socioeconomic situation I'm in and think about moving. It's like, it's probably not going to happen. And so what I would want is to make a change to the fundamental like base of where these people grow up and how these people have their lives set up, so that we don't have to tell them to change. They just have a normal, and that's where I go back to the other thing where I'm like, I think, free like education, good education to everyone is really important. Like, to me, it's a literal fucking travesty that like the richest country in the world can't just educate its own people. And then free healthcare, because a lot of people, if you don't have access to healthcare and education, I don't even feel comfortable saying people are free to make choices. We don't have to get into that.
No,
that's a lot. That's a whole thing.
I kind of understand it and kind of agree with that.
Like for me, any limitation on a person's ability to choose to do something they want to do is technically an infringement on like their freedom. And I don't mean legal freedom. I mean like just personal freedom. And so if your education level and your ability to just be healthy is being constantly stressed because of a system that can't just support you, I don't even know, when you get to the point where you choose what kind of life you want to have, if you're really making that choice, or if you're just acting upon the systems that are forcing you into a specific path. That's all I'm getting. I'm typing talk too much. I'm saying too much shit. Go ahead, Mike. You say something.
My brain hurts.
Okay. Fuck. I don't know if
I feel like I stayed on that point way too long.
I don't know.
My bad.
It's fine.
I don't know.
I do want to ask back about your friends who would have Confederate
Mhm.
flags. Did you ever have any other thought about them, or are they just your friends and that's it?
As I got older, I think I cared more about it. Like there was a moment where my my mom at a certain point she worked with multiple companies at a convention center, and like we had partner ownership in like a arena football team and all the shit. We got somehow got connected to NASCAR, and I yeah the girl I was dating at the time was white, and I was like, oh man, I can get us to a fucking race for yeah, let's do that. Never have gone to a race before in my entire life. I think I went that one time and never went again. Because like I got there and I quickly realized I was like, ooh, all right, I'm the only person here of my like that looks like me. Like that and everyone else also realizes that I'm the only person that
So
looks like me.
all eyes are on you.
Yeah, and I was just like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not gonna do this kind of thing. And then there's a lot of Confederate shit there and like whatnot. So like around that time was when I kind of went like, okay, so like there are people that have this symbol that it means more more has a more mal intent toward like with it than my friends.
Okay.
So like I wasn't blind to the fact that like there's more behind, like there can be more. There's more pop.
But you didn't think your friends.
Yes. But no, like the people that I hung out with, like it was just like they grew up with this thing, and they had a lot of pride around this thing. I didn't think any less or think they were evil people or had it like
they treated
they treated me like I've had dinner with their families.
Sure,
like
okay.
I've like yeah, like it would be very hard for me to see those people in the light of like, oh, that guy's a bad person.
Gotcha.
Like yeah. So I don't know.
Dude, racism is fucking redacted, dude. That shit's stupid as fuck. Racism is so dumb. And it seems to be like there's a lot of people who are racist to some group of people or fucking homophobic or whatever, and they have really close friends that are either not of their same race or not straight. Because it turns out it's actually really fucking difficult to hate someone that you just know.
Yeah.
Really well.
Yeah,
so how many?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that there's like a billion examples from like the KKK where it's like people in the KKK that have black friends. And they're like, "This is my friend Jim." Anyway, I hate black people. It's like, well, maybe there's just a lot of Jims out there. You're thinking about that. They're not just a fucking crazy group of people you don't know. Like,
I did recently. Somebody brought up I don't like talking about where I work, but there was someone who was a regular there, and I never had an issue with this person. Nice, kind, would come in, play where the fuck he wanted to play, hang out, very nice to everyone around him, like very cool. Found out like 2 days ago, if someone was like, "Nah, he's mad racist." Like that guy is really, really racist. I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, and
you should just dox him right now.
It was one of those moments where I was just like, okay, maybe my barometer on people is just broken sometimes. Like sometimes people are able to just mask it very well, but like I don't know. I don't even now if I saw that guy again, I don't think I'd look at him too much differently. Like I think now there's no way to get that out of my brain. Like it's in there now. But like he's never given me a reason to not like him. Like he's never treated me poorly. He's been very respectful. Like I don't know. What's funny is the person who told me this said, "Oh no, once he gets like very comfortable around those people, like he lets some shit go." And I'm just like, oh, okay. Yeah. And I get that I'm interacting with him in a professional environment. So like there's a little bit of that kind of dampens that, but it's interesting, I guess I should say.
Yeah. That's always.
I mean, was he like perceiving like maybe the guy was like telling jokes and stuff, and he took it the wrong way, or no? It was just like
okay. So I wouldn't have believed if it was just one person.
Oh, okay.
Because there were like two people that came to me,
Okay.
two separate conversations, same guy, and I was just like, okay, all right, cool.
It turns out most racist people don't just walk around carrying burning crosses.
Sure. Yeah,
They're just like normal people, like 98% of the time, and then sometimes they just like They just say something. You're like, woo,
I just posted
wait a
it.
second.
She originally sent it to me because it happened over right by her parents' neighborhood. It was a video I posted from over in Oviedo of a black man worked for the Oviedo High School football team, so she knew who it was, and he, I guess, walked by on the sidewalk past her house, and she called the cops or something, and then so he walked back, filming it. She was like yelling hysterical on the phone to the cops, saying who it was, how he worked for the football team at the high school, and her husband standing there with her, and she's like, he's filming me and I'm on private property and all this stuff. And
she even said, don't send the ones that are friends with him because they're all friends with him.
Yeah, she said they're all friends with him.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And then you dig deeper into that post too, and the cops have said there's nothing that they can do about her. At what point do you make enough calls about the same person?
She's apparently done it like before and everything.
Until you get in trouble for making that call.
You know, looks like a normal white lady.
Yeah.
Karen.
Do you guys
Michael,
have...
we're not saying slurs.
Oh.
Okay.
Do you guys have like or had any experiences with like a person that you are friends with, but you know something about them that you're adamantly opposed to? Like, is that like a...
I wouldn't say friends, but my parents, super fucking racist. So like,
yeah. So,
but they're your parents. What are you supposed to do?
yeah, it's
So when I was on this is about like if I know someone and whatnot. When I was on Steven's stream, like it was like 2 weeks ago or something like that, I had I've mentioned a few times how I think
what's the? Are you sure it was my stream? Do you remember the Twitch link? Do you want to say the Twitch channel? No, I'm kidding. I'm memeing.
Steven Galaxy. That's the name. It's an F.
Because he likes rocks.
Can you fucking say it?
So I think our country is like a racist culture to where people accept.
I love this. It's so funny.
Not that the country is racist. Not that America is a racist country, but that we live in a racist country or culture. In the fact that people will see something. Granted, right now it probably isn't the best time for me to say it because everyone's acting on it. But not just like it could just be a small racial experience that someone witnessed, and they won't act on it in any way. It's a norm, and so I feel like it's become a norm. And I've had friends where we'll be out in like their driveway and we're drinking, having some beers, and they'll just casually, they're white, just casually say the N word because they're talking about something, and I don't agree with that at all. And so, but he's even defended himself on Facebook saying how like, you know who I'm talking about. Like I've known him since I was like 12, and we have two like pretty big different views on a lot of things. He's a big advocate on loving his cars and guns. Literally posts about them all the time.
Is that one of the two big views?
The two that we talked about here.
Like how you had mentioned how people love their cars and guns. Well,
I was like, damn, you're like,
one of those
I grew up and I was like, fuck cars. I love cars. Holy shit, I mean, I guess, dude,
like,
whatever.
He like worships like how his car looks and his guns and all that. And you've seen him on my post and everything.
Is this the dude that I was like, he had the warmest take of all time?
No, not that one. No, that...
Mike was like, listen to this fucking hot take.
And I read it on that post. But and it's not just him. I've had other friends, too, that'll just, like, casually say... They wouldn't be, like, maybe the hard R, but it's still, like... And I'm not cool with that. Like, I don't use it. And...
It's good.
So,
it's brave. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. It was just the pause. It was just felt right.
Well, no, because some people defend it, like, oh, just a word, and
listen, I'm on record
friends and everything,
saying that I don't think intent matters. Okay, so you're in good company, at least on this side of the table, and I'd assume some shape related.
Well, so, but yeah, like a lot of people just casually don't think it really matters, especially if you're just surrounded by like other people of your color.
So
And everyone just accepts it. Like, I didn't act on it.
yeah,
Because, alright.
I'm one of those people. I don't. I don't.
I know.
It does, he knows,
we
but,
talked
like,
about it.
It doesn't bother me.
Sure, I know
when
it doesn't
someone
bother,
says it,
like, some, but it will bother.
And this is the reason why it's one of the blacklisted words in my chat. Like when I stream, is there because honestly, I can say it on stream. I'm not gonna get banned.
Right.
Like that is something I can do. I don't do it because I know that there are other people that exist that it does offend. So I just choose not to say it.
Yeah, I haven't
But-
blocked on my Twitch.
Yeah, it's just like, but I know that if like even when people come into chat, and this has only happened to me once, where I see like what's it called, the what emote? You know what I'm talking about?
The try hard.
The try hard emote.
I didn't want to say it because I was
Yeah.
like, I don't want to do the thing,
Yeah.
but I know what emo people spam to be racist.
So like,
yeah.
on one hand, it's the same. It falls in the exact same category in my head, where it's like, to me that's funny, but to someone else, I know that's very offensive. Like, so it's one of those things that if you want to create an environment where you don't offend those people, then get rid of it, axe it. But if you're in an environment where it's not causing harm, I don't care. Like I have friends. I'm literally having Tim come on like in a couple of days. Like it's like
He might say it once.
Oh,
You should have you should have like a counter.
Oh God! I'm genuinely concerned about how I'm going to do that for YouTube, because I try to have like one day of editing. If I have to censor every single one of those, that's going to take days. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to finish that in one day. But I don't know. I understand the people that are offended by it. It just doesn't offend me. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird, but because I think most of the people that I talk to that are black, like that, my acquaintances and friends that are black, it to a degree it offends them, and I just don't say it. I abide by the rule of if I'm a friend of yours, or at least I'm trying to be somewhat close to professional with you, like I'm not. Why would I bother with that? Like, I don't need it in my vocabulary to relay an information. So
I feel like Tim is gonna be secretly like really smart.
Tim's gonna be woke as
Whoa,
fuck.
Have you guys
Tim's gonna
ever
be woke as
talked
fuck,
to him
dude.
like outside of like a group of friends, like a group of people, just like one on one?
This one time, Tim told me that he might have rented a car out to a dude who murdered someone. But other than that, no.
That guy is actually very well spoken, and like he's smart. He's not. So like
Because it's sometimes hard to understand him.
Yes,
He
yeah.
rambles,
But like his thing is he's just trying. He's making people laugh.
No, of course.
He's entertaining people. But when you're talking to him, I've talked to him about like money, business, and like all kinds of stuff. Like he's doing it for laughs. And I think that's kind of cool too, because you have this guy who, and I think that's the reason we were talking about earlier about like the whole like banning thing. I think that's part of the reason why is because yes, he says some outlandish stuff, but it's outlandish stuff and everyone's laughing.
Yeah.
Everyone is, because everyone realized like it's always funny.
Every time I'll always look around the room,
it's
and
always
everyone
funny.
is laughing about it.
So
All you need is to make sure that there's no like socially inept person in that building that's like, you guys like that word?
oh,
I could say that word.
there is that just reminded me that happened at the place that I work while I was not working, and I was sitting down playing with a couple of friends, and it's actually Lee that pointed out. It was super funny. So like we're all sitting there playing, and some guys behind us are playing like D&D or something. Which the group is hilarious because it was like one white dude, Hispanic dude, white dude, black dude. This white dude, hard R, just drops it loud and clear, and like I hear it, but like the way in my head I'm just like, huh? And I don't. You guys know Robert Kelly?
Yeah.
No? You do?
Yeah.
He's sitting next to me playing his game, and he hears it. He's like, "What the fuck?" And I see Tim down the line, and even Tim, like, he heard it, but like he was just laughing because it was like and then all it took was for Lee to be like, did everybody hear that? Larry's like, did anybody hear what I just heard? And I was like, yeah, I heard it. And then then staff got involved.
Probably just like some kind of Nordic rune or something that he just
man, it was
mispronounced.
so funny, man.
They put a lot of apostrophes in the middle words. You're like, I don't know how to say this.
Oh man.
Here goes.
I
Whoops.
should get Lee on here at some point.
note about your not knowing how to say this. I had a little 6th grade.
All right.
One of my old friends was writing a word on the whiteboard, like that he had to spell or something.
Yeah.
And he wrote it, and it looked like the N word. And me being in the 6th grade, not knowing anything, said N word, and didn't know what was wrong about it because I hadn't been taught. Like, I didn't know anything about it. They just all looked at me, and I was like, "What?" I had no idea. But yeah, I'll never forget that.
When you were in the 6th grade, everyone said that on like Xbox Live or anything. True. True. Actually true. Is there anything you want to address on that, or it's up to you?
This?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to.
So at this point, I feel like we'd be getting close to like the 4-hour mark if we started doing this again. And I also kind of wanted this in 2 parts with different groups of people. So like I wanted to save the other end for them on Thursday. So yeah, I mean we can call it here if you want. I don't know if you have anything else. You want to shout out your channel? You want to shout out your channel? You want to shout out your channel? I don't know if you have a channel, but she's like, no. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Like, there's more than ample time for that if you want to.
Me to shout out my channel?
Sure, I don't know, dude. I'm just here. What do you?
Twitch.tv/
Don't tell me I'm following already.
Yes.
Yes.
Blood_wolf__.
There are 2 underscores at the end of that.
Extra cringe.
It's bad marketing.
I was like, this is.
I've had it since like 2003.
It's bad
You
branding.
know you can change it for free, right?
Yeah, I could.
Okay.
But well, the gamer tag has always like been the same. So
All the people searching with the underscores will never find it.
I know.
Who changes it?
For some reason, someone else thought of blood.
Fuck, it's just regular Blood Wolf now. Fuck.
You know what it actually means?
Blood Wolf?
Yeah, there's an actual.
I couldn't possibly understand.
It's the Blood Wolf moon. It's like an extremely red moon that only happens like so often.
That's like the t-shirts that all like the fucking old racist white dudes wear from Walmart. Yeah, it's like the floating wolf head and then the cliff. And
Yeah, basically.
yeah, it's that.
All the flea market T-shirt stores have it. Yeah.
Who am I to, roast someone for inspiration? Oh, I play indie games on Twitch, and sometimes do just chatting twitch.tv/StephenGalaxy. Yeah.
I don't know why when you said / in my head, it wasn't underscore, and I was like, you don't have a fucking.
No, I got no underscore. No numbers, no symbols in my name. That's the good shit.
I used to. I had the 3 and the 0.
Yeah.
Like, this shit's cringe as fuck.
Yeah, fucking credit card usernames.
Yeah.
Cringe.
But yeah, thank you all. This has been great. I don't know how many of these I intend on making, but if I do continue making more of them, you're more than welcome to come back. You're also more than welcome to come back and talk about stuff that's not.
I'm down for anything.
Insane,
Joe,
and heavy.
Joe,
So,
just Joe,
hey,
just Joe, yo. How does this always happen? I come on the podcast. We have to talk about racism. We got to talk about oppression. I just want to talk about fun.
All right, so we're
gonna
gonna
have fun.
That. I have.
I'm about the fun one.
You're not the fun.
No,
one?
I am about
Okay.
the fun one.
I have these 2 this week. Then next week I'm having somebody come on to talk about veganism for a bit. And then
Get me about
I
keto.
want to have.
I wanted a fun one. Damn it. I wanted a fun one.
Man, you guys know Tia, right? Yeah. I have her also planned for later on as well. So it's
Is that for OnlyFans?
partially. I want to talk about that kind of stuff because I think I don't think people.
Way to call me out, thank you.
You literally made a movement.
Yeah.
I just leaned in.
I just
Okay.
I think that stuff's very interesting, and I think people have a certain what's the word?
Stigma?
Yeah. I think it has like a
Listen,
stigma.
okay, sex work is real work, and if you think that sex workers are worse because they sell their bodies for money, every fucking worker sells their body for money, okay?
Yeah.
That's
I
real shit,
agree
and that's
with that
and that's the real talk.
I just
My fucking back hurt, okay? Everybody do it.
I think when you start asking people about where their personal line is, that's where it gets interesting. Because I feel like on one level, everyone can agree, like, sex work is real work. Like, no one's saying, well, I'm saying, there are some those of us without the smooth brain itis. Like, they
a lot of lobes in the brain.
You can like you accept it, like it's a job, like it's just a job like any other. But I do think it's interesting when you start asking, okay, well, fine, you say it's a job, and you say it's real work. Would you be okay dating somebody who did that, or would you be okay with dating somebody who was in porn? Would you like? It's like where does that line go? So
There's some guy.
Yeah, do you guys watch?
Don't say it.
Logan Paul.
Oh wait,
God.
what?
no, I don't watch him.
They're gonna hit me with like the iDubbbz
podcast
thing.
at all?
No, but I think I know what you're about to say because I've seen it on other
I
places.
posted a link to a clip of his most recent podcast. So his like best friend and like his manager basically is Mike Madlak. He's like actually like he got brought up through like drugs and everything, like huge addict, and went to jail, all this stuff, and now he's like actually like super chill. He's dating Lana Rhoades, #1 porn star.
I have my safe search on, so I've never seen her.
But and he says it's like difficult sometimes because he's got people constantly like messaging him saying certain things, and even his roommates will say something, and but more on him, I would suggest that you go search the last Logan Paul podcast where they talk about this, what we just talked about, and he gets very passionate about it. It's actually like really good what he has to say.
I'm upset that it's attached to Logan Paul, but
Yeah, on that, the Paul brothers, cringe as fuck.
yeah,
True. They're the only people that state violence should be used against. Just kidding. Maybe.
I love this straight face too. Just like,
Yeah. Almost.
but thank you again. I will.